GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Brady, head on BPR and GBH and NPM live from the library. For the first hour, it's the June edition of Ask the Attorney General with Massachusetts AG Andrea Joy Campbell. From ballot questions, snafus, to suing the Trump administration more than 50 times, she's here answering our questions and yours at 877-301-8970, or just come to the library in Copley Square to ask her a question in person.
I'm Marguerite, and then in the second hour, Mass GOP Chair Amy Carnevale and Mass Dems Chair Steve Kerrigan and our party leaders panel. And on a wet Tuesday, it'll rain Queens as we check in with Martha Wash and Marsha Warfield ahead of their show, It's Raining Queens in Arlington. Finally, we'll open the phone and text lines to hear from you on the biggest story since the brain worm, Trump's reflecting pool algae fiasco. Are you loving this as much as Jim and I? Call or text on BPR live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is heading to eastern Pennsylvania later today. He's expected to talk about the U.S. economy. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports the president is looking to turn the page on war with Iran.
Trump will be visiting a Mack Trucks manufacturing plant where he's expected to tout the work his administration has been doing on the economy. This is going to be his first domestic trip since signing an agreement with the Iranians to end the fighting in the Middle East. Republican elected officials have been asking Trump to turn to the economy for months as the midterms approach. And politically, Trump needs this. His approval ratings continue falling to record lows after his handling of the economy. And according to NPR's most recent polling, just 36% of voters say they approve of Trump's overall job performance, while 59% say they disapprove. That's the widest gap Trump has faced during either term in office. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
There are election primaries and runoffs today in 4 states: Maryland, New York, South Carolina, and Utah. NPR's Sage Miller reports voters in Utah will be choosing from among several candidates for a newly redrawn congressional seat.
For the first time in modern history, Utah has a safe Democratic congressional seat that could help determine the makeup of the House majority come November. It's also one of the most competitive Democratic primary races Utah has ever seen. The top 3 candidates range from moderate to progressive to aligning with the Democratic Socialists. Damon Cann is a political science professor at Utah State University. He believes this race lays out the choice facing Democrats across the country. Do voters want a party that will stand its ground on policy, even if that policy won't go anywhere quickly, or a party that aims for collaboration, even if that means compromise? Sage Miller, NPR News, Salt Lake City.
A federal judge in Minnesota has quashed some federal subpoenas given to local officials in the state. The judge ruled the subpoenas were baseless, unethical, and possibly illegal. From Minnesota Public Radio, John Collins has more.
The subpoenas by the U.S. Department of Justice sought information from local Minnesota governments during the height of the ICE surge into the state, which led to thousands of arrests and the killings of 2 American citizens by federal agents. The judge said the subpoenas violated the 10th Amendment, which bans the federal government from using its powers to coerce local governments into adopting federal policies. A Justice Department spokesperson said they plan to continue to investigate. The judge plans to unseal the transcripts of the grand jury that led to the subpoenas as early as next month. For NPR News, I'm John Collins in Minneapolis.
On Wall Street, the NASDAQ is down more than 1.5%. Investors are worried about potential interest rate hikes. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court has thrown out a ballot question that would have enacted the nation's strictest statewide rent cap in Massachusetts. Today's ruling puts the kibosh on the hopes of tenant advocates who are fighting hard for rent control and gathered serious momentum doing so. The Globe reports the ruling comes on the heels of a similar decision last week that saw the SJC toss a question that would have lowered the state's income tax to 4%. The court says the rent control question could not move forward because it would have exempted units that are operated in religious facilities. And layoffs are coming to the Coca-Cola bottling plant in Northampton. The company plans to permanently shut down that facility on December 15th. The Daily Hampshire Gazette reports Coca-Cola filed a notice in compliance with the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act on June 15th, saying that the layoffs of some 175 workers will come on August 15th and then again on November 30th. A note from the company says it's committed to supporting the employees through transition, including working closely with the state to identify new job opportunities. The plant bottles Coke's non-carbonated products like Minute Maid and Powerade. Red Sox Rockies Game 2 of their 3-game series tonight. The 4 o'clock World Cup game today is England versus Ghana, and that takes place in Foxborough. But it may rain and it may be wet. 66 degrees in Boston, 67 Springfield. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Eric and Wendy Schmidt through the Schmidt Family Foundation, working toward a healthy, resilient, secure world for all. On the web at theschmidt.org. This is NPR.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library. Thank you. And streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Going to be back here tomorrow and on Friday. Next week, we are off January 4th week, but we'll be playing our best of shows. And, of course, they were just spectacular. Mm-hmm. Hello, Jim.
Hey there. By the way, I feel an obligation to say Marjorie and I were supposed to be off today as well. We were off yesterday. But when we saw that Jamie was attempting a coup on the show, we decided we had to return immediately. So our schedules are totally changed. It's now time for the June edition of Ask the Attorney General with Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. She's here for the entire hour taking our questions and yours. If you have a question for the AG, you can give her a call or send her a text at 877-301-8970. Or if you're here at the library, you can find our colleagues Nicole and Charlie. They would be right there. And they might let you ask a question yourself. Attorney General, it's good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for being here.
So as I just said to the Attorney General before we went on the air, breaking news is always very exciting to us in the journalism business, and we have some big breaking news. The Massachusetts State Highest Court just threw out this ballot question that would have, as the Globe puts it, enacted the nation's strictest statewide rent control in Massachusetts, talking about how it would exempt, because it would exempt units operated in religious facilities. So tell me what you think about it.
We just got it.
Yeah, it just happened a few minutes ago.
Nearly unanimous decision.
Do you understand this any better than I do?
Well, we obviously, when we got the rent control initiative, we certified it. But we, of course, have to respect the court's decision, which ruled against us and said we got that wrong. And the piece that they focused on was the fact that the initiative relates to, part of it at least, relates to religion because it exempts housing used for religious purposes. And we went into the hearing understanding that, but we said to the court at the time the initiative exempts a number of types of housing, including nonprofit housing, and the exemption for religious uses was a minor one within the broader petition. The court disagreed and said that even a minor reference to religion is not appropriate for a ballot initiative. And we were just reviewing this. Obviously, the decision just came out, and I think it was only the second time that the court has reviewed this standard, so it's not like it happens frequently. We were surprised, but of course we will follow the court's ruling and move forward. And this ballot question will not move forward to the ballot.
I want to ask you two things about this, and I don't want to get lost in the weeds for people, but as someone who used to do ballot campaigns, Article 48, which allows for ballot questions, says you can't have a ballot question as anything that appropriates money or relates to religion. From reading, admittedly, just the Globe account of the decision, all that the ballot question did was affirm what the Constitution says. We can't have a ballot question that relates to religion and religious-owned property. So I know it was unanimous. Why is that a violation of anything?
Well,
it seems
based
to be
on our
a
quick
reaffirmation of what the Constitution says. But go ahead.
So when we certified it, we thought we were obviously on right legal footing, but based on the decision which just came down from the SJC and our quick review and analysis of this, they determined that even exempting, even a minor exemption here, even if it's a minor issue as we described it, was enough to say that this relates to religion because it exempts housing used for religious purposes, and thus it cannot proceed.
Okay, one last thing that is not a legal issue is you knew, I don't know from just reading if you were involved, that because of the ballot question, there was an effort with some developers and the proponents to just try to strike a compromise so this wouldn't go to the ballot, something less extreme. Were you involved in any of that at all?
No, I was only hearing about it either through advocates or folks in the legislature or others who were pushing for a compromise, so I have no idea what's going on with
I guess the follow-up question is, we all know, thanks to some brilliant Globe reporting last year, that the legislature is dominated by developers and lots of elected officials who have tons of property who obviously don't like rent control. Isn't it sort of incumbent on constitutional officers using bully pulpits to try to convince the legislature to stay at the table and try to strike? I mean, the polls show people want some form of rent control. Would you or the governor or others try to convince the legislature to continue cutting this deal even though the sword of the ballot question isn't hanging over their head?
That's what the voters should do. That's what advocates are already doing, right? You elect us to put us into positions to do our jobs. Folks obviously have real concerns about affordability in this state, as I do. I'm using the tools of my office that I have direct control over to rein in costs, including through our new housing affordability unit, through some zoning reforms, through the enforcement of MBTA communities, utility cost work, reducing costs. That's directly my purview. The work of the legislature is within their purview, but folks should, of course, demand, as they demand of me and my team, to address the issues they care about the most. I will tell you, obviously, we did not expect the SJC to come down just less than an hour ago, I think, to decertify our certification of the rent control ballot initiative. But we respect the court, as we always do, and we'll move forward in complying with it.
One last ballot question issue. To quote you just said a minute ago around the rent control thing.
To quote me to me.
Well, you said we got it wrong. You also got the summary on the income tax, the cut wrong, which led to that being struck. Do you take any accountability for the striking of that question and not allowing the voters to have an opportunity?
I always take responsibility. This was a record number of ballot initiatives we received in the office, in the history of the office. It was 47. We reviewed 47 ballot initiatives. We certified 44. 6 were challenged. 3 were successful in those challenges. 3 were not, including rent control, the stipend issue, and income tax. So now I see it as incumbent upon me and the team to go back and to ensure that we continue to improve our processes, our analysis. That being said, no one should expect us to get a perfect result. No organization could. But that being said, we take our jobs seriously and we hold ourselves accountable. And those 3 we got wrong, according to the court. We're going to follow the court's orders and move forward with the rest of the ballot initiatives.
But the statement from your office, I have to say, was hard to take for me. The response when the summary was determined to be to violate your constitutional obligation, quote, it's difficult to summarize succinctly. That's your job, is to summarize
I'm gonna stress this because I think it's important. I have an incredible team of lawyers and staff. You know, I'm always celebrating them because they work really hard. They are passionate public servants who do their jobs of serving the public because they care deeply about people, they care deeply about the Commonwealth. They're doing it in the context of a federal administration that's working against us and fighting back to hold them accountable. And they also, of course, take their job seriously when it comes to the ballot initiatives. We had a record number of 47 in the history of the office. We reviewed our 47. We engaged with every stakeholder, the proponents and the opponents. And that's not even a process that every government follows, but we do because we want to hear all sides. And when we get it wrong, we say to all sides, we got it wrong. In the context of the income initiative, we said to the proponents and the opponents on both sides, at no point did they challenge that summary that we put out as a draft in over-communicating. The court said, you got it wrong. We said, we got it wrong. And respectfully, we'll now move forward and do better in improving our processes.
Do you think they wanted you to get it wrong because it would have helped their cause?
I can't speak for them.
Okay.
But what I will say is all the attorneys and the staff who worked on these issues take their job seriously, and anytime they get a result that's opposite of their analysis, they review it closely and always look for ways in which we can do better.
The number to call if you want to speak to the Attorney General is 877-301-8970. You can call or text that
Call
number.
us.
Call.
One last thing about this income tax cut. It was very popular. There was predictions that it would have passed, and then there was concern for labor unions and other people in the government that it would have decimated services in Massachusetts. So some people are very happy about this. But as the Commonwealth Beacon points out in a piece they wrote about this, that it's a big deal to me that what it says is misstates the petition's impact by incorrectly stating the rate cut would not impact taxes on long-term capital gains. And the question says exactly the opposite. You know, that's what's so...
It's a flawed
summary.
The summary.
It's a flawed summary.
Yeah.
The court pointed that out. We made a mistake.
Right.
We are now reviewing how we do better, and we will do better going forward.
But what I found so strange is
Yeah.
that as you point out, the proponents saw this too.
And they never pointed it out.
Well, it was good for them.
That's a question for the proponents.
It was good for the proponents.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they noticed it and didn't want to say anything. I don't know. I don't know, but you do have to wonder
I don't
that.
know. But I do want to stress, because I think when we are coming on the radio, I representing my team, we always want to over-communicate. So even whether it's our new assisted living regulations, where people have a different position or posture on how we review something or what we put out, we have an open-door policy to say, give us your feedback. The same is true for our ballot questions, whether they're certified or not. We take that seriously, and we want to, of course, move forward, hopefully getting the result right. But in the context of a few of these, we did not, and we own that. And now we have to make adjustments going forward, including ballot initiatives that won't make it to the ballot.
Okay, we're going to, the phone lines are a little screwed up, but keep calling. They're going to be fixed. Oh, they're fixed as we speak.
Yeah, the number
we'll
again
start
is
taking calls in a second.
877-301-8970, 877-301-8970. Meanwhile, we have a couple of texts here. Connie and Natick text. Any plans to reverse Eversource's new $34 a month fee for meter readers? Eversource installs smart readers, including at my daughter's house. Within a month, she developed... I cannot say this word.
I don't know what it is.
It's when you have a... you get sound... ear ringing. Thank you.
Tinnitus, is it?
Yeah,
I'm not sure what it is.
Tinnitus or tinnitus. Or, anyway, and learn smart meters emit radiation and should not be installed outside a bedroom wall. She had to replace it with a regular meter, but will have to pay $30 a month, $34 a month for having it read. They never charged before, so why now?
Can Connie, this is so specific to, sounds like Connie, her daughter, can she just stay on so we can follow up with her or leave her contact?
Text back. Connie, text back your number that we can reach you.
Yes.
Do we have any way to get the number? We have the number. Okay.
And we'll follow up.
We've got your number,
Yes.
and we'll give that to the
Okay.
Attorney General, and she can follow up.
I'm ballot obsessed today. Another ballot question that you're finally out of, and I'm sure you're thrilled we don't talk about it every month anymore. The audit question. After the SJC ruled, and this is the thing that passed 2 years ago, 72%, voted after the SJC ruled, you allowed the auditor to hire, was it called an independent counsel? Is that
SAG.
Independent.
Special.
Okay. And she's done that, Shannon Liss-Reardon from down the street. After that, I mean, you probably know as much about this as almost anybody except the auditor's office since you're involved for so long. The Speaker of the House writes a piece, I think, in Commonwealth Beacon, saying what they did to be transparent and to comply with the audit needs solved the problem. And I think a day or two later, the Globe editorial wrote, "Who does the Speaker think he's fooling?" I'll read a quote. "The House bill contains a poison pill." This is incredible. "A provision that would bar any future possibility of judicial review should any state auditor ever be denied requested legislative records." Did you find what the House passed to be an adequate response to the voters' will expressed 2 Novembers ago?
So I'm going to reframe the question.
Sure.
The Speaker should be invited here to answer however he feels about his bill, his op-ed. He
I'm
has
asking
his
your
own
opinion
thoughts.
about it. Yeah, I got it.
We are now removed because this is now in the court, right? We agreed, and I supported, I say it all the time, question one, and that the legislature could be audited, but that there were constitutional limitations to that audit. The court has now said there are 4 areas and limited the scope of the audit, right, which is what we were looking for, that limitation, recognizing some constitutional limitations. And so that will play out. We are no longer in the middle of that. If that changes and the auditor comes back or the legislature comes back, then we will then, of course, be asked to participate at that stage. So we're not there yet. So now it's the auditor has her opinions, the Senate President, I'm sure, has hers, and then the Speaker has his, along with anyone else who serves in the legislature, because, they're not always of the same opinion or mindset. So I'll leave it at that.
You're glad you don't serve in the legislature?
I love my job as Attorney General. And this is why I'm running again to be Attorney General, because we have real tools to do real work on behalf of real people, to have an impact that is direct and that is actually felt, to improve government delivery, but most importantly, to improve the outcomes for our people, and I take that seriously.
To get back to this income tax thing one more time, because as I said, it was popular with voters. Stephen Newbury wants to know why you cannot pursue rewriting the summary so that it is on this year's ballot. It seems like we're circumventing democracy by putting it off for 2 years, something that by all accounts the people supported. I think I read why, but I don't remember why.
This is how the cycles worked this way for other ballot initiatives too. The proponents will come back, go through the cycle again, and obviously we will learn from our mistakes and move forward. That being said, I will say this is why we over-communicate to both proponents and opponents, and even other stakeholders that care about this that may not be directly involved in the ballot initiative, because ultimately we want, say, the 47 that we received this year, we want to be able to bring that to the people, as people are doing a lot of work to ensure they go through a robust process to make it happen. So we will continue to work on these issues, and we'll see what happens on the next cycle.
Tell us about this United Healthcare suit.
Oh, United Healthcare. I'm glad you asked. So really excited about this case, and I want to actually pull up numbers on this, because my team, most folks don't know this, my team that works on this is our Medicaid fraud unit. And they are tasked with making sure that taxpayer dollars are protected, and not just protected, that Mass Health and other state agencies, the money that they put out into our system of healthcare to deliver healthcare services, that money is used according to rules and regulations, and most importantly, protected as stewards of these taxpayer dollars. And so we expect companies to act in good faith when they get taxpayer dollars for healthcare delivery. Our team sued United Healthcare after trying to work this out with them for knowingly defrauding Mass Health at the tune of over at least $100 million. And this was a multi-year investigation that found United did a few things. One was to misclassify some of their members. There are various levels that you can classify someone to receive certain health care. Misclassified certain members in order to receive and charge Mass Health more, even though that particular patient, for example, was not receiving more services because they didn't need it. The second is they failed to report overpayments to them. In addition to that, they actually claimed that certain members needed services they didn't actually receive. So there's a laundry list of allegations here. We see it as intentional practices by them to grow at all costs, which was an approach that even one of their executives acknowledged that they had. And so we're fighting to protect the Mass Health system and also delivery of healthcare services, and we've sued them for $100 million.
To me, this sounds so egregious. This is a massive company that's all over the United States of America, knowingly, it seems, from this, stealing from taxpayers.
Absolutely. And as I said at the beginning, we understand that companies are given taxpayer dollars to deliver services, including, in the context here, elder care services, which we take very seriously. Every company has the obligation to work not only to steward those dollars, but to work in good faith and to deliver high-quality services to our constituents. Here you have a company that knowingly defrauded Mass Health for close to $100 million in egregious ways that were absolutely intentional, and that's what we intend to prove. And so we have sued them after a multi-year investigation, and now we will pursue that case, and we'll keep the folks updated as it moves along.
A couple of follow-ups there, and by the way, I just want to say the phones are fine now, and thank you. Those of you on hold, we're going to get to you in 1 minute. I'm sorry.
877-301-8970.
You know, you used the word intentional when you were just talking to Marjorie a minute ago about what they did. If I went to a hospital and saw $1,000 lying on the desk, and I took the $1,000 and ran away, you or the DA in that county would prosecute me for a crime. If you believe, as you obviously do, that United Healthcare engage in intentional theft, and that may not be the term of art, but stealing money, why are none of their executives criminally charged, or at least those executives that are responsible for the intentional thievery, according to you, criminally charged for that act?
When I took over as Attorney General and sat down with my Medicaid fraud division, which is incredible at what they do, just in fiscal year 25 alone, I'm going to mention this because they work so hard on taking on fraud, they recovered nearly $140 million. They secured 21 convictions, indicted 27 people, and resolved 31 cases. And I remember saying to Toby at the time, who led the division, is now the head of my entire healthcare bureau, should some of these folks go to jail? It is not easy to, even if we are pursuing a case where we think there's intentional fraud happening and other ways of abusing elders, for example, it is not easy to prosecute these cases. It is also not easy to put folks in jail, either because the laws are not always on our side, so hence why we often work with our federal counterparts here on strengthening the laws to allow greater accountability. Also, you have a posture sometimes in some of our courts where judges will see someone who has no maybe prior criminal record and say, well, let's give them a different outcome, which we can't determine that, right? Not for a lack of pursuing certain charges. Or another factor that also has to be considered that isn't necessarily talked about publicly, you shut down some of these institutions that are defrauding Mass Health as we seek to recover those monies. They're still delivering services to patients that desperately need those services. You start to take off some of these companies offline in certain communities, you will literally have access deserts when it comes to elder care and certain type of care. So it has to be a robust conversation even with the administration. And I've talked to Health and Human Services about this, that how do we hold people accountable while at the same time not setting folks up, for example, where they will have no care whatsoever. So we're holding them accountable monetarily. We're holding them accountable restitution. We're holding them accountable in paying back the state what they owe. We're holding them accountable with compliance monitors, independent compliance monitors that have been proven to work to raise care. So it's not always black and white, but to your point, I had the same question. And so we pursue those who are the most egregious as aggressively as we can. But sometimes the law is not on our side to do that. Sometimes the courts are not on our side when it comes to how we handle these cases. And then there's a larger issue of, do we want patients to go without care? And that's not an easy
But the
answer.
patient without care thing, which I respect, obviously, your position,
Absolutely.
would not apply to the crook of all crooks in healthcare, Ralph De La Torre.
That's
and
ongoing.
Other than the island, there's an investigation in your office?
I've said before, I can't say much about Stewart, but when I can, I will.
And there is an investigation. You just said it.
When I can, I will.
But you just said it. Is that true?
Ongoing.
Ongoing. Let's take some calls. Sorry with the screw up. Matt and JP, you're on with the Attorney General. Hi.
Matt. Hi, Matt.
Hello,
Hey.
Matt.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
I'm calling because I am a former fifth grade teacher at the Croft School in Jamaica Plain, and I understand you might not be able to say a lot, but I was curious if you could share anything about a potential investigation into the company or the founder of our school. As you may know, the school has filed for bankruptcy. The teachers are not getting 20% of the pay that we had already earned. And, there's a lot of parents and a lot of investors who are out of, my understanding is $12.5 million.
Thank you, Matt, and frankly, thank you for your service as a teacher. We have been following this closely. In the immediate, our office was pulled in, particularly my Children's Justice Unit, to support parents and to support folks who are trying to make sure that their children were able to continue and extend the school year and to finish their school year, to make sure they were we could support in other ways. And I know that some folks stepped up to offer resources to allow for that, and I think some were anonymous donors. That being said, we don't have a direct involvement just yet. And when I say yet, meaning I don't know, because we are still learning a lot more. But that being said, if you want to stay on, Matt, because we have had other outreach from other elected officials who cover this school and this district, please do. That would be helpful to us as we engage more folks with respect to the Croft School.
We had two parents on from the Croft School, a month ago, and they talked about not only the concern about the guy who's the head who allegedly engaged in this fraud or whatever the alleged crime is, but about the board of directors' involvement. We've done a number of segments on since Andres Nelson's was fired at the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and a lot of people have emailed us, texted us, including some people who work there, raising questions about the board's action. And you have a charities division which oversees nonprofits, specifically, I think, if I remember correctly, whether boards have appropriately carried out their fiduciary responsibilities. Are you looking into at all, or have you been requested to look into the board's behavior around the firing of Andres Nelson's?
Not that I'm aware of, no. And I would have to go back to see if we've received something specifically on that. In the context of the Croft School, we had folks reach out about, obviously, the money and where it went, board involvement, board concerns, et cetera. We're more limited than I think people think and know when it comes to our direct accountability of board members and board of directors. We handle a lot of the transactions and other things through our charities division, a lot of technical assistance, a lot of guidance, but not necessarily the tools that the public might expect to hold people accountable in certain ways for inaction or intentional action that would harm a nonprofit. That being said, why I asked Matt to stay on and others, because we've gotten outreach and we're in contact with even elected officials in the legislature about how something like this could happen, what could look like, where our tools could be most appropriately emphasized or our platform used, and then how might we improve just accountability in the nonprofit sector space when it comes to issues like this.
Within the jurisdiction that you do have, without us giving people a headache, who is able to reach out to your office, whether it's about the Croft School or the Boston Symphony Orchestra or any other nonprofit? Who has, I don't know if standing's the right word in this kind of, who has,
anyone can reach out.
Anybody could say, we think the board of the Croft School has,
anyone can reach out. Anyone can, absolutely.
Okay.
And they can go online, they can call us, and this is what happened in the Croft School context. Some of it came through local elected officials, state representatives, counselors,
okay.
But folks also reached out directly. And then there were folks in my office that had direct connection to that school because their children attended. So we got complaints that way too. And we review all complaints and take them very seriously. And we will have a response, sometimes a response that not everyone will love, where we can actually do something. And if we can't, we'll see if there's some agency or something else that can happen to bring about greater accountability.
We're going to try to squeeze in one more call before the break in a couple of minutes. Mark from Orlando, Florida. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wonder if the Attorney General knows about this situation or pattern of things. I rented a car from a local car company, car rental, and the car actually, the registration was expired, and so was the inspection, or maybe there was no inspection sticker actually. I was pulled over for that and fined, and spent months trying to fight that. Had no help from the car rental company here in Massachusetts. Have seen a number of. There was a Globe story written about this pattern at some point, maybe a year ago or so. So anyway, the officer who pulled me over said, "This is a pattern for car rental companies. If a car goes out of registration out of state, they will rent it to somebody from a different state who will drive it back to the home state, so they don't have to pay for some kind of expenses to get it fixed while the car is out of
Mark,
state."
What's the question?
Any knowledge of that?
Is it Mike or Mark?
Mark. His name is Mark.
Mark. Yeah.
You said any knowledge of that was Mark's question.
I would have to look to see. We have a whole division. I always say have to look to see because we have a whole division in a couple of our front-facing divisions that do constituent cases, including our card division, where we have teams, like auto teams, based on all the things that go wrong in purchasing an automobile, used or new, et cetera. So, Mark, if you could just stay on, we'd love to follow up with you specifically about your experience, and we can review if we receive complaints from there and go from there.
Okay,
helps.
We'll take your number, Mark, and thank you very much for calling. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk more with the Attorney General on the other side. The number to call or text, 877-301-8970. He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR and GBH NEPM live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The Attorney General will be with us until the top of the hour.
The World Cup is spilling into Massachusetts streets. The world's game in our community. GBH News is capturing the energy, the culture, and the news behind every game.
I could tell you like where I was in every World Cup since 1986.
They are amazing. Boston is my #1 place now.
You have bragging rights for 4 years. 4 freaking years.
Follow along at gbhnews.org/World Cup.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, with exhibits this summer by artist Jan Lormer, special exhibits from the museum's collection, plus a new sculpture exhibit, Under Construction, America at 250. artcomplex.org. And Modern Pest Services, providing integrated pest management for Boston homes and businesses. Modern Pest uses a prevention-first approach to seasonal pests to help target the source of the problem. Learn more at modernpest.com. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And MIT Federal Credit Union, believing the right home starts with the right support. More at mitfcu.org. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 699225.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Bradley. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, back here tomorrow and Friday. If you're just tuning in, we're in the second half of the June edition of Ask the Attorney General with the AG, Andrea Joy Campbell. Here until noon. You can call her or text her, 877-301-8970, or if you go over to Cole or Charlie when he returns, you can ask her a question face-to-face. Before Marjorie has a question for you, Attorney General, both I and maybe even you made a mistake a couple of minutes ago, primarily me, though. Do you want to make that correction?
We were talking about the Croft School,
Yeah.
and that it's a for-profit school.
Yeah, my apologies.
Which is different, obviously, from the BSO and other institutions that reach out to us. That being said, people can still reach out. We don't know if we can be helpful or not. And then in the context of, I know we asked Matt, who teaches there, to follow up with us. We've had some teachers reach out to our Fair Labor Division, who handles wage and hour enforcement. So please reach out and we can see what we can do. But we can't promise it, but it is for profit.
We appreciate that.
So, Attorney General, the United States Supreme Court, any day now, second now, could be making a decision involving mail-in ballots for the election coming
maybe Thursday.
up.
We'll see.
In the fall in November. So is Massachusetts ready, depending on what the Supreme Court does, if they change the dates on which you have to send them by, or they otherwise restrict mail-in ballots?
We're ready. We're getting ready. Actually, the Secretary, Galvin, and his team and I have all been in touch. I'm actually putting out a Know Your Rights guidance probably sometime next month. We'll wait to get the decision from the Supreme Court, and we'll go from there. But we're preparing now and having conversations now. But we hope the Supreme Court gets this one right, because the headaches it would cause are significant.
So speaking of, are you involved? You are one of the AGs involved in this thing about the Feds capping student loan stuff. Are you?
Which?
This July 1st, aren't they capping student loan amounts, or they're
Graduate
not?
school or something like that?
They're not? Oh, yeah, you're okay. I'll clarify it in the next couple of minutes, because I thought you'd know.
We have a lot of student loan cases, don't get me wrong, against the federal administration.
Jamie, could you put that up for me if you don't mind? This, I thought there was something July 1st. ADUs.
Graduate student loans.
ADUs,
granny flats as they're called.
Yeah.
A lot of text today, and the legislature actually did a statewide mandate around zoning, and the questions are around within that, what are local governments allowed to do? Here's the first of many, anonymous. Some towns are adding cumbersome requirements for ADUs, some of which go directly against what the law says. For example, some towns such as Haverhill are requiring that an ADU have all separate utilities, even though law says they can't ask for separate utilities. How do you challenge such a town when you're a little nobody? Well, that's
you call us, whoever that was. First of all, I hope they don't refer to themselves as a little nobody.
Well, they did, unfortunately.
Okay, who is this? Tell them you're not a nobody. You're
Okay,
not a nobody.
Thank you. I knew you'd say
I feel like Jesse Jackson.
You are somebody.
I am somebody.
That's right.
Yes, I am somebody. May he rest in peace and power. This is why you have us. So we are tasked with enforcing that new expansion of ADU laws across the Commonwealth. I was actually just in Pembroke visiting with a family a mom and her daughter. Actually, it's the daughter, her and her husband. Their mother lives downstairs, but it's an ADU that was designed to help her age in place, right? It was beautiful to be there with this family to talk about the power of our ADU and how you can design it in different ways that will serve our elders. And, of course, others as well. Let's be clear. That's why I don't like granny, whatever they refer to, flats.
ADUs.
That being said, so call our office because we are seeing that in various towns. There may be some misinformation or lack of knowledge on how these ADUs should be moving forward, mostly as of right. And so our municipal law unit, our housing affordability unit, is providing technical assistance on a regular basis. So to the extent people are hitting barriers, whether it's individuals, developers, others, don't hesitate to reach out to our office.
There are limits on what cities and towns can do.
Absolutely, and usually in the context of like parking. But that being said, most of it's as of right.
Marjorie was right. This is a cap on graduate student loans that goes into effect on July 1st. And our understanding is you're one of the plaintiffs? You're not? Or no?
So
well, if it doesn't ring a bell, we'll
that's okay.
pass it till next time. It's fine.
Oh, maybe I'll have it at the end.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Susan from Puerto Rico. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Susan. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you.
From Puerto Rico?
Yes,
yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Well,
big in Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
one of my roommates in college was from Puerto Rico. This is so great. Hi, Susan.
Well, I'm a gringa. No, I'm from Milton, but my husband and I came up with a great idea, which I'm not sure if it's such a great idea, of buying 7 acres of property in the mountains. And
did you just refer to yourself as a gringo?
Gringa.
Gringa. Yep.
Female.
Okay.
So we live in Milton, but we're in Puerto Rico renovating a house in the mountains. So, yeah. It's beautiful here, though. It's absolutely stunning.
Susan, you don't sound that excited about this idea.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, now that we bought the 8 acres, the house.
You should see the faces of the people in the library right now who are like, we'd love to be in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So, Susan, it sounds like you and the Attorney General should have coffee after the show. But during the show, what's your question for her? What's your question?
Well, so, yes. So I guess I'm a retired now nurse. And I know it was just brought up, but I really want to emphasize, I can't emphasize enough, well, two things. I grew up in Milton. Okay, Kearney was a great hospital. I worked there in the 80s. It was a good hospital. I worked there in 2021 until the final day.
Oh.
I can't tell you the disaster. And I was older. I worked as a nurse case manager. If it wasn't for the M&A, I would have been fired 5,000 times over again because I was constantly in it with Stewart. Management and administration. It was all about getting the patients out. The care was horrible. And I really hope and I pray that Ralph Bulatore, and I'm not a vengeful person, but what I saw, and my husband kept saying, why are you going back there? I'm like, because I feel like I need to go back there. The patients were poor. It was awful. And the way Stewart treated them, it was, I could just go on. I'm so upset with Stewart. They have to be held accountable for what they did to a hospital that was started by a poor Irishman in 1863. And how it ended, I was like the Chicken Little running around that day. People were stealing computers, stealing everything, papers on the floor. It was awful. It was awful. Even the plaque of... Anyway, I could go on. Please hold them accountable.
Susan, we really appreciate your calling.
Thank you,
Attorney General.
You know,
I would just say I don't disagree, right? I inherited the Stewart case and issue and got into the weeds of it, and including looking at ways in which money was taken out of these systems in order to not benefit the patients. The Kearney was our hospital. When we lived in Mattapan, that was our emergency room. That's where we brought our kids. That's where we went. And to watch it close so quickly, so abruptly, to take away services from folks who need it the most, to take away jobs, was disheartening and heartbreaking, to say the least. And so we're doing what we can. I think the legislature, everyone has a role, but I think also the legislature's looked at where the tools are limited to hold them accountable transaction by transaction, so that you don't get to a place where after several transactions that you get to this final result of closure.
You know, we should point out that one of the things that was so enraging to people when we found out about this was that the guy, De La Torre, the guy that ran these whole things, I think it was one 90-foot boat and one 160-foot boat. Then he's over at Versailles watching his wife in some dressage exercise. I know you can't go into detail about this case, but I would assume that in general, cases like this where you are fighting someone with very deep pockets to hire a lot of lawyers, that's one of the reasons this is taking so long?
That's true for many cases.
Yeah.
And why I always acknowledge and give gratitude to my team of lawyers and non-lawyers. They work hard. Most of them could go somewhere else and make a lot more money than the Commonwealth could ever pay them. And I don't say that to suggest they're not making a good salary, but at the end of the day, it's not comparable to even some other state agencies, and certainly not comparable to the private sector. They do these jobs because they care deeply about the rule of law. They care deeply about enforcing it in Massachusetts, and they care deeply about protecting constituents, and they care deeply about service and accountability. But what I love about Massachusetts is we are the greatest state in the country to live and work, and if you forgot that, well, just look at yourself in the mirror later on and remind yourself of that. We are the greatest state to live and work in, and we are the best public law firm in the country. And it's an honor and privilege to lead this law firm as Attorney General and to work with an incredible group of folks, of close to 700 folks across 4 different offices doing remarkable work, sometimes against resources that are stacked against us, but fighting the good fight in order to hold folks accountable.
Speaking of the good fight, can I just for a second follow up on that? Is you filed, we read in the 50, 60 lawsuits against Trump, and the CNN just put out, I think yesterday, the part of the judges' rulings, judges from Trump-nominated to Democratic-nominated. Let me just read a few. This is from Massachusetts. The president's palpable misunderstanding that the government simply cannot seek retribution for speech he disdains poses a great threat to freedom of speech. West Texas, it's Texas. The case has its genesis in the ill-conceived and incompetently implemented government pursuit of daily deportation quotas, apparently even if it requires traumatizing children. Yesterday out of Minnesota, the Tim Walz case, blatantly unlawful what the administration was doing. This is related to going after the principals of these healthcare companies. In all these lawsuits, they break the law, they violate ethical standards, and all they do, in quotes, is they lose the case after the defendant has gone through hell. Do you seek contempt against either the DOJ or any other Trump officials who are involved in the deceit, the blatant unlawfulness, the lying, the palpable or do these cases just end and like no harm, no foul? Do you know what I mean?
So I do. So I have to take a step back.
Sure.
So in our federal context, our state work continues, as we mentioned, with ADUs, our assisted living regulations, all the work we're doing on affordability. The other piece, of course, that we are tasked with is federal accountability. We have an administration, and I tell folks, I don't care what your political party is. It doesn't matter to me. We do our jobs regardless of that. And everyone should be concerned about what is happening at the federal level. They're blatantly violating the law to do what? To steal taxpayer resources and Massachusetts dollars and investments. The 59 lawsuits that we have filed as of today are protecting close to $4 billion of the nearly $4.03 billion that they have tried to take from the state unlawfully. That includes SNAP benefits, that includes resources for our libraries, our cultural institutions, radio programs for the public good, transportation, public safety, our fair housing laws, resources to address housing affordability, you name it, the list is long as to what those 59 lawsuits cover. In addition to that, the rule of law itself. As we wait for decisions from the Supreme Court on birthright citizenship, which was the law of the land for 150 years, that's the first thing they challenged. So we are using our tools maximally to fight back, and I'm doing that with other AGs across the country, to protect Massachusetts' reputation, nationally and internationally, our economy, our residents, and our resources. So we're doing our part. The second, though, is civic engagement. I'm always bringing that up because our tools will hit a wall at some point. And then the question becomes, how can we make sure that we're putting people into office that will not go in on day one and say, How can I violate the law? Let's start with birthright citizenship that will instead use the limited resources that we have in government to help address affordability. If the president were to land at Logan today, I would meet him along with the vice president and do everything in my power to work with them to actually bring down housing costs, to bring down utility costs. Instead, the tariffs conversation, the uncertainty, the chaos is putting housing affordability projects on hold because of that uncertainty. It's making costs go up, including utility costs. It's having the opposite effect of what they say they intend to do, which is address affordability. And so this is where, in an election year and in election years to come, people voting, people being civically engaged matters. And I would just say we will do what we can to protect Massachusetts. And I really do encourage folks who are listening to really look at the harmful effect this administration is causing. And I don't care what type of business you run, if you had that level of uncertainty and chaos, good luck trying to run an effective business that delivers to real people and is sustained over time. That's what we're getting, is uncertainty that is affecting the results here in Massachusetts, and we're fighting against that in order to protect our economy and to protect our residents.
Well, but the question was, do you ever seek contempt against the people who have chosen to misrepresent facts, lie to the court, violate ethical standards, or no?
Well, right now we have, in some cases, we have gone back to court for motions to enforce to push the envelope on getting them to comply with our legal orders. Judges have stepped up too to say, you're not listening to me, you're not following my order and exercising their authority. And I would say each of us maximizing our authority maximally could have, we are having an effect in reining in this administration. And I'll mention offshore wind. That industry, which is critical right now in Massachusetts, would have went under without our lawsuit, without our partnership with the private sector, the administration, and many others. They have just decided, the Trump administration, not to appeal our victory in that case. That's a game changer for Massachusetts, for our climate goals, for jobs, you name it. So judges are helping. We're maximizing our tools, all of us working together in this moment in time. It is having an effect to protect billions of dollars in industries here. I just don't know that it's getting the level of attention that people can feel and see as they're going about their day-to-day lives and feeling maybe a sense of despair and hopelessness. It's like, please, do not stay in that space, because at a minimum, you have an attorney general that's fighting for you and fighting for our state every single day.
Michael in New Bedford, you're on with the attorney general. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Hi, I'm calling this morning.
Yeah.
I'm calling. My name is Michael, and I'm a fourth grade school teacher in New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Great.
Now, in the summers, I work as a lifeguard to make ends meet, and now I'm going to bring a situation to you that's been presented to me as of yesterday. Last week, I rescued a man at my beach that I work at, Horseneck Beach. He was stuck in a rip current. And before that happened, I had whistled him to get him out, and immediately I saw he was struggling, so I went in the water to rescue him, and I did as fast as I could. Now, yesterday, I received a notice that they're pressing charges for negligence. Now, I don't think they have anything against me, but I don't know the negligence laws well, and I just want to know if you're familiar with these laws, and I don't think there's anything to prosecute me. But I'm driving by Boston, and I figured I'd call and see if you have anything for me to help me out with my situation.
Thank
Michael,
you.
Let's hear
Thank
what
you,
the
Michael,
AG
for calling. You
Thank
should
you.
stay on, because we would need to know more details. And you say negligence. We obviously also work with our local district attorneys who have jurisdiction in their districts. So, Michael, if you could stay on, we will follow up with you and get more details.
That's a state beach. Don't they have insurance for their lifeguards?
We don't know enough.
Yeah.
But I appreciate Michael calling in.
You know, this is always hard. Last month we broached with you, your brother was in the middle of a trial on numerous rape and rape-related charges. Since we saw you last, he was convicted on 21 of 22 charges. What's that like for you? I mean, what's that like for you?
I said this initially, that I give significant acknowledgement to the courage of those who came forward in this case. I pray for my brother all the time, and I will continue to pray for my brother. That has and will never change. And if anything, it's an opportunity for me to go deeper in my faith, which I talk about all the time, but I don't think that people really get how deep it runs. I am so deeply faithful that anything that comes at me, I know that I'm protected. I know that I'm delivered. I know that I am covered by a God I serve, not just the God I serve, by Jesus Christ, and by remaining in my Bible and remaining in my vertical relationship. That has been the game changer of my entire life. And I name that openly, not to discount anyone else's faith tradition, but to name it so that folks know that what sustains me is so much bigger and so much deeper and so much more powerful than anything that this world could ever bring against me. And that is the posture that I will remain in. I'm a wife and a mom of 2 beautiful boys, and I already feel like in many ways God has given me 2 boys to break cycles of poverty, criminalization, mediocrity, not just for them, but also for other families in Massachusetts. And I share my story with vulnerability because I think we need more of that. We have young people right now who are struggling, and our culture would suggest they only talk about the beautiful parts of their story and attach shame or anything else to other parts of their story that people don't like. Well, I would say, don't do that. Your full story, all pieces of it, including the parts that you had no control over, is your superpower, is your ability to actually maybe help other people with your testimony, and hopefully not to forget that you have the opportunity to use it for good for other people, and I think that's a blessing.
You know, as I've said to you many times when we've talked about your faith, I don't have it, and I wish I did.
Well, maybe by the end of our encounters, you will.
No, I really
you're welcome to come to church with me at any time.
But and maybe this is naive because I don't have it, despite what you said, and I believe every word from the first day we met you many, many, many years ago. You talked to us privately about your faith and publicly about your faith. It's got to be incredibly hard. You're a human, too, who has to do her work and live her life. And how hard is this time been for you?
I'm a human, and I don't shy away from, yes, this is hard. I view this as a season of my life where it's not just the issues around my brother, the auditor's issues and some of the vitriol related to that, the media coverage of some of this, and some of the articles and columns by certain folks who would then bring in my whole family and suggest they know me when they don't. All of this is hard, and then trying to do this in a public way while having children and a wife. And I get that, but I take all the trials and tribulations, and I give it right back to God, who tells me to count it all as joy, and that nothing compares to the glory. And so that's what I stand in, and I continue to go more and more in my word that has proof points of what happens when you take all this hardship, all of this trouble, all this trial and tribulation, which the word says we should welcome it because the world is it. That if I take it and put it right back into his hands, he will handle it, and I'm allowed to operate in peace and joy. And as you know, Joy is my middle name.
We do.
No one will ever take that away from me.
So you'll keep working on me. Is that the...
Absolutely.
Okay,
I'm working on you every single time. I'm praying for you, too.
Thank you.
Not in all of my prayer
I can
times.
understand that.
But occasionally I do feel called to pray for you, Jen.
Andrea Joy Campbell, who's the AG. We have another 5 minutes with her.
Allison and Waylon, thank you for calling.
Hello, Allison.
Hi, Allison.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call. Long-time listener, first time getting through, so happy to do so.
Thanks a lot.
I was calling because this is about the Andrea Nelson and the board issue. Mm-hmm. I know there's been a lot of sturm and drang over the board's not being able to, or not responding as to why Andrea Nelson is departing. I just wanted to say that, I'm a board member in a mid-sized nonprofit. We've had a situation where a CEO, in our case, had to depart. And we were basically gagged as far as the reason. It's like any corporation, nonprofit or for-profit. It's legally inadvisable to say why someone was let go unless that person has broken the law. And
So is there a question?
So,
Allison, is there a question for the AG in this, or you're just sharing?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sharing, but the question is, am I right? That there are restrictions on boards or legal advisability for sharing. Should they be sharing what Andres Nelson, the reason was for his departure?
So, Allison, I'm going to have you stay on so we can follow up. Every board is different. It's not only certain laws that may be applicable, it also may be the board of director documents themselves that govern the organization. But if you can stay on, we will follow up with you and go from there.
Allison, don't go away. We'll get your contact info and we'll give it to the
And we will
AG's
follow
office.
up.
Allison, thank you much.
Here's a good one, bringing up the old tariff stuff. This texter said, I paid a $150 tariff fee when I ordered my daughter's wedding dress last fall. Am I entitled to a tariff refund? I haven't picked up the dress yet.
I'm not entirely sure about that. I mean, possibly, I don't know. But, I'm looking at the and we can follow up with this person. But I just want folks to know the impact of that chaos and uncertainty, including around tariffs, which, of course, there were lawsuits and successful lawsuits on this, too. And I think there is a conversation about how you get the money back to people. But that being said, the impact of this chaos and uncertainty, one day it's this, the next day it's this, the next day it's this, and the disruption it causes our economy, the disruption it causes projects in housing, job creation, et cetera, as something that everyone should be concerned about. And we can only pick and choose which lawsuits we are able to file. We want to make sure the law is, of course, on our side, but most importantly, that there's a Massachusetts interest at stake that's worth fighting for. And we have found several instances where, yes,
can we do a quick
back.
The anonymous texter?
About immigration.
Yes.
Yeah,
I would like to ask the Attorney General what advice she has for immigrants who are married to U.S. citizens and applying for a green card. Specifically, does she recommend they seek legal advice or accompaniment by an attorney at the interview? And this is because of changes from Trump on the green cards.
Yep. So we've put out a lot of guidance, and we continue to push the envelope on what we can put out. Even on our website, we have a whole page related to all things immigration, including know your rights, et cetera. We have to be careful because I am not allowed statutorily to give legal advice. That being said, if this person wants to follow up, we have created a whole network of lawyers and volunteer lawyers who have made themselves available to help folks in instances like this, and also to help folks who may be unlawfully detained, which we know has happened in Massachusetts. So if this person wants to stay on, and because if our information on our website does not answer enough based on the specificity.
What is your website again?
It's www.mass.gov/AGO.
Okay.
We only have 30 seconds left. This question's from Marjorie, but she's too shy to ask it. She is obsessed with the reflecting pool and the algae and the peeling paint. And she wants to, in Washington, she wants to know.
I'm sorry, what?
Can you sue the
algae?
Can you sue the algae or the peeling paint on behalf of a citizen
I'm very concerned.
Taxpayer of Massachusetts? Can you refer that to somebody or take her contact info or something?
You guys have a lot of contact. We'll let you refer that to who you want to refer
We're referring
that
it to you, actually.
And my team members are like, yeah. Yes, but I will just say thank you, as always, for having me.
Thank
and
you.
to those who are listening, enjoy the summer, right? Take some time to find your joy. It's an honor and privilege to be your Attorney General.
We really appreciate you being here.
Clearly,
Thanks,
the Attorney General is not as obsessed with the algae.
Or maybe she is, and a little more grown up than you and I are.
Thank you very much, Attorney General, for coming in. We much appreciate your time, and so do our listeners. Coming up after this quick break, we say goodbye to those listening to NEPM. I forgot to say that. Fabulous 413 is at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We're going to keep going here in Boston. We're going to talk to the head of the state Republican Party and the head of the state Democratic Party. Up next about local politics in Massachusetts. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And thanks again to Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. Thank you very much for being with us.
GBH Radio is where you come to find serious news and analysis of local, national, and international stories. It's not just nice to have, it's a have to have. Support this trusted home for fact-based journalism at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, offering business and personal wealth management and private banking services, investing more than $240 million in local communities since 1994. More at cambridgetrust.com. And Revolve Dance Project, presenting Revolutions, a celebration of live music and dance with original compositions and choreography. Sunday, June 28th at 2 and 6 at the Strand Theatre in Providence. Ticket info at revolvedanceproject.com.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, Pat. The 1990s Saturday Night Live character who turned one question, was Pat a man or a woman, into a pop culture fixation. But in 2026, is Pat still funny? In the new documentary titled We Are Pat, filmmaker Rowan Haber revisits the sketch, the backlash, and what the character reveals about gender, comedy, and society's anxiety about ambiguity. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Eastern Browdy. I am Marjorie Yegan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A couple of programming notes. We're going to be here tomorrow and Friday. We're not going to be here the week of July 4th, or before July 4th, I should say, because our whole staff is on vacation, but we will be replaying some of our very best shows. We hope that they're good shows. Hello, Jim.
And we're back on July 6th,
yes,
which is a Monday. Joined out live at the library desk by the chairs of Massachusetts' two main political parties. Amy Carnevale heads the Mass Republicans. Steve Kerrigan leads the Mass Democrats. Every once in a while, for some reason, they agree to join us to talk local and national politics.
They
Amy
do.
And Steve, it's great to see you both. Thanks so much for being here.
We're very grateful that they do come in.
It.
You know, Jim is obsessed with the legislature and their 5-month vacation. He's always trashing them for the long vacation. And a lot of people talk about how it might be better to have more of a balance. The Democrats basically run the legislature. So
they have every single constitutional office.
And every single constitutional office.
And every seat in Congress.
The Democrats are running things around here, but a lot of people think that we need more Republicans to balance things out. So how's it going, recruiting some of these Republicans to get them to run?
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. So we've actually been doing very well in candidate recruiting. For the first time ever, the Mass GOP used digital advertising and digital targeting in some of our key legislative districts to try to recruit quality candidates to run for office. And we've been largely successful. So we have a great crop of candidates who will be on the ballot this November, and we're looking forward to having them present their message to try to bring back two-party government in Massachusetts.
And of the 200 legislative seats, I assume a lot of them are not running for re-election. How many of those are being challenged by Republicans? Well, isn't 200 Democrats? How many Democrats in the legislature? 175?
Well, there's 29 Republicans. So
170 of the 170 plus Democrats, how many have a Republican challenger?
So I would say, put it this way. So we'll, as a political party, we'll be focusing on about 36 of those seats that we consider highly competitive. So these are seats where either Donald Trump or John Deaton got at least 40 or 45% of the vote in the past two cycles.
Why don't you have a candidate to run against the auditor or the Secretary of State, both of whom are Democrats?
Yeah, so we did not have candidates come forward for those offices. Our track record with the Secretary of State in particular, we had a great candidate with Anthony Amore. He got 25% of the vote. It's hard to attract candidates to run for those statewide offices, to raise money independently, to be able to run and compete. We'll be looking again in 4 years. Maybe it'll be time. Maybe our Secretary of State will retire, and I think that would be an opportunity where we could run and compete competitively.
And you want to reduce the number of constitutional challenges by 2 because you were trying to knock 2 Republican candidates off the ballot for around signature collection issues?
Yeah, not just me, but also a Republican candidate for lieutenant governor wants to.
Well, because they're running against the Republican they want to knock off the ballot.
I mean, we don't want to knock them off. What we want to prove is that they're trying to cheat out their way onto the ballot.
How are they allegedly cheating?
They each submitted and this is for a Republican candidate for lieutenant governor and the one candidate for attorney general. We are before the Ballot Law Commission now, actually right now, hearing those challenges. What is very clear is they each submitted 10,600 or so signatures of the 10,000 you need certified. There's very clear evidence that shows that the signature firm they hired, both hired the same firm, basically cheated. And the same person signed every fifth name, and just they went what's called roundtabling, where they presumably sat in a room and just passed the papers by. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of frankly cheating. And what I find astounding is that since Donald Trump came down that gold escalator, he's been talking about how the Democratic Party wants to steal elections. And this is very clear example where two Republican candidates are trying to cheat their way onto the ballot. And this isn't just us. Again, it's being challenged by a candidate on the ballot as a Republican and a woman who didn't submit her signature papers because she knew they were fraudulent and didn't.
So I think this is a mischaracterization of the candidates themselves. So there is an individual with a signature collection firm who allegedly collected improper signatures. So it's alleged that this individual committed fraud against our candidates. So it's unclear how many signatures may be deemed invalid. And
it sounds like you're not challenging the fraud claim. You're just defending the candidate and saying it's the collector.
The fraud was committed against
these
candidates.
So you think you agree there was fraud?
So these candidates, I think it's clear that there were signatures that were improperly submitted. But again, it was the signature collection firm that allegedly committed this fraud. Our candidates submitted these signatures in good faith, and I think on that case they're going before the Ballot Law Commission to try to stay on the ballot.
So as the only person at this table who has had to, as a candidate, collect more than 10,000 signatures.
He was a candidate for lieutenant governor a bunch of years ago.
A bunch of years ago. It is very hard to do, but it requires you to get out and meet voters and go to VFW halls and libraries and really, it's an organizing test. These candidates chose the easy way out by hiring a firm. It's perfectly fine to hire a firm to do these things, to have some buffer signatures. But when you hire a firm, you have to understand that you are responsible for the signatures that you submit, because you sign those nomination papers and you submit those.
So the vast majority of signatures were collected at the grassroots
But the law doesn't
level.
say you submit a vast majority of 10,000. It says you can submit 10,000
So,
certified
Amy,
signatures.
what it sounds like to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that I don't know what is your position on these hearings? Are you defending?
So our position is we are defending our candidates.
So, but you're acknowledging that even if, let's assume for purposes of this question, the candidate had nothing to do with it. It was the firm itself. Are you saying that if it's found by the commission that the firm committed fraud and they didn't get enough signatures, they should be on the ballot anyway because the candidate isn't responsible?
So again, the candidate certainly should take responsibility for the signatures that they submit.
So should they be on the ballot if they don't hit 10,000
I think what is
legit?
unclear at this point is how many signatures may have been fraudulent.
And if they're knocked off at below 10,000, would you continue to make the case that you're making, that not on the merits, but that the opponents filed the petition too late or some other technical thing?
I think what's clear in this process is we need to look again at the process by which candidates get on the ballot themselves.
What should happen
we're
differently?
seeing with many of these ballot questions themselves, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on collecting signatures. And again, it's really meant to, as Steve said, generate grassroots support, and it's become now an issue by which that candidate and that issue that is the best funded gets on the ballot.
If it was last question, Marty, then I'll shut up.
Yeah.
If it was constitutionally permissible, I don't know if it is, would you both support legislation that outlaws paying signature collectors? Would you?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So, Amy, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court just blocked this high-stakes income tax cut question, which seemed to be popular with voters. Serge Georges Jr., writing for the unanimous court, said that the official summary produced by the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, misstates the petition's impact by incorrectly stating the rate cut would not impact taxes on long-term capital gains. I've been reading some stories, even the judge, one of the judges, Scott Kafner, said this whole thing was bothersome. There was an implication, not necessarily by him, but by other people, that this was done on purpose.
Yeah,
you think it's done on purpose?
So I don't know whether this was done on purpose or it was simply an error, but it's clear that this was a grave mistake, whether on purpose or not, that is really putting out taxpayers that went through this process, again, collecting the signatures, hiring a firm to get this question on the ballot. And whether this was a calculated error or it was simply a mistake on the part of the Attorney General's office and the attorneys involved, our taxpayers in Massachusetts are left out in the cold once again.
Yeah, so look, I worked in the Attorney General's office a long time ago. What I know for a fact...
What did you do? I didn't know.
I was the Chief of Staff for the Attorney General.
Which Attorney General?
Tom Riley.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go
wow.
ahead.
A long time ago, yeah.
Okay.
A hidden factor on your resume.
know,
We did
right?
not know that.
It's there somewhere.
Okay.
It was a long time ago. But what I do know for a fact is, because we went through ballot questions often, is the proponents who wanted this ballot question looked with the Attorney General at the language and approved the language that was submitted. So the idea that now they're trying to blame the Attorney General for inaccurate language...
It's her responsibility, not the lawyers.
It sure is.
Absolutely.
But what it might suggest, if we're suggesting mistakes were made, it might suggest the proponents didn't want people to know about the hidden costs to your other tax implications.
Because it would have helped them.
Because it would have helped them. And so, look, the bottom line is the court ruled it's not going to be on the ballot. But I think playing the blame game, knowing full well that the proponents looked at that language and said it was okay by them and it met the intent that they had when they were going around and collecting signatures, the Attorney General, who is really good at speaking for herself, she and her team did what they felt was best. The court ruled differently, and we move on.
You know, one of the things, can I criticize you for a second?
You do it really well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We do quite regularly, and you text me back. No, and all this is not you.
Yeah.
One of the things that's driving me nuts is somebody who I think was involved in the last ballot campaign 36 years ago with a huge tax cut. Every single story, including ones I read in the Globe this morning, said very likely to pass because the polls say 60-some%. We were losing by 60-some% because the other side had spent a huge amount of money. We hadn't spent anything. The campaign started. We won. We defeated it 60-40. So, I mean, it seems, to me, it's not helpful. I think everybody raised legitimate issues, but this notion that, 5 months before people are going to vote, it's very likely to pass.
I've said
belies
it twice today already.
Well, you're wrong. I mean,
I agree
don't know
with
if it's going to pass or not, but it is not a given. That is for sure.
And I'm going to do a rare thing. I agree with Jim.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I agree
thank you
with
very
Jim.
much.
I frankly think, and knowing the campaign that was building up to push back against this, against the massive amounts of money, I think we had a really solid chance because the people of Massachusetts like the direction the governor and the legislature is taking us, and frankly, they want to make sure the resources are there.
You know, on that question, we've had the Senate candidate John Deaton on. We'll have him on again. We had Brian Shortsleeve, who's one of the two Republicans, and I'm told we may have Mike Minogue in early July. We hope we do. The response from everybody, and by the way, this is Democrats too, if they're on this kind of issue, you don't need to cut anything, it's just waste and inefficiency. As Marjorie said to either Shortsleeve or Deaton, every candidate since Adam has said all we need to do is eliminate waste and inefficiency, and not one candidate in history, Republican or Democrat, has done it. Don't the Republicans have an obligation when they're saying cut taxes, whether it's federally, state, to whatever, to say, we think it's a good idea, and frankly, here concretely are the parts of government that we think we could do with less of or without at all. Isn't that their obligation?
Jim, I would say that Republicans were forced to go to this acts of the ballot initiative because in the legislature, our budget has increased dramatically over the last several years. So this is a bit of a bludgeon.
He cut $1 billion in taxes with this legislature.
The better way to do this would be through the legislative process.
Agreed. Everybody
and
agrees.
And the governor working cooperatively to cut programs.
I support your recruitment efforts, but if you recruited a candidate in every district, maybe you'd have a better shot at doing that. But the voters of Massachusetts have time and again sent the legislature, despite polls that say you're not happy with the legislature, they've sent this legislature and this group of leaders to Beacon Hill because they see the results that Governor Healy, the Speaker, the Senate President have delivered for them. And
there was a poll last week where virtually nobody could identify in Massachusetts the major achievement of Governor Healy, who's been in office almost a full term.
Doubling public education funding.
I'm not challenging
more time
you.
on the show.
No. I'm not saying you couldn't come up with a list.
And
the
this
voters
is why
couldn't
voters
come
are
up with
skeptical,
lists.
because they can't name an achievement that Governor Healy has done over her 3.5 years in office. And now you see a ballot question by 60% looking to pass to cut our taxes, and then yanks from the ability of voters to.
Well, it was not yanked. We can't say we like the courts in one moment and we don't like the courts in another moment. The court ruled, and we move on from that. But I will say this.
And unlike the president, the attorney general said she'll adhere to the courts and respect the court's ruling.
And I would just add the audit to that list as well. 72% of the
people in
voters support the
Massachusetts,
audit, and
whether they can list a thing or not, they feel every day the impact of Maura Healy, of Ron Mariano, and of Karen Spilka, and the work that they've done to double public education funding, to get 100,000 homes built or in process, to provide free school lunches for kids, free community college, to fix our broken teeth that Brian Shortleaf left in a disaster.
So I would say
by the way, to push back against Donald Trump cutting health care benefits to about $1 trillion.
So most citizens are feeling an affordability crisis here in Massachusetts and having trouble paying their electricity bills. And
but I would also say that most citizens weren't in a grocery line thinking, you know what I really want to fix is the reflecting pool. Or standing trying to fill up their tank and talking
I'm
about,
obsessed
do you know
with
what we need
reflecting
is a 900-person ball.
How do you feel about algae, Amy? That's the bottom line.
That's the thing. It's like most voters feel it in the areas where the president thinks grocery is an old-timey term. There's just an utter disconnect. There's an utter disconnect between this president and the needs of the people in Massachusetts.
This is what Democrats do. They deflect.
Speaking of deflect, here's the question. There's an impact on what Donald Trump does to the people in Massachusetts.
If affordability is the biggest question in America, and I think it is, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever you are, when the President of the United States stands in front of a destroyed East Wing, where he lied, and I use that word very carefully, to the American people when he said no taxpayer money, even after he had already paid invoices with taxpayer money for that, and says, I don't really care about the affordability thing. Then he does a wrestling match on his birthday. Then he does this $14 million no-bid contract at the same time that I totally agree with you, the biggest issue is affordability. Don't you cringe when you see this crap?
And the baby ducks are in jeopardy.
No, I'm serious. Doesn't it drive you nuts?
Well, look, I would say it is clear that our capital city, Washington, D.C., needed to be cleaned up. As someone who visits the city often, it absolutely needed to be cleaned up, and the crime in D.C. was abysmal.
How about my question? Does it not drive you nuts when he's doing this crap at great expense with no bids, when the American people want prices to come down?
So I will say, next week I'll be in Washington, D.C. with the family of the UMass intern Eric Tarpinian-Jackum, who was killed 1 year ago next week to the day. We will be meeting with the acting attorney general and others in Washington, D.C. to talk about the crime in Washington, D.C. and youthful offenders. And one thing that Eric's mom will say is that thanks to President Trump, our capital city is much safer today than what it was 1 year ago. And that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars.
Okay, so should Steve Kerrigan, should Graham Plattner's personal life matter? That's the question in the headline from The Hill, and people may know he's running against Susan Collins, who has been a pretty reliable Republican Trump voter, but he has a very troubled past. Nazi tattoo, he either knew what it meant or he didn't know what it meant. Sexually explicit messages with women after he got married, etc. Should that disqualify him?
And there's one condition. You may not say Trump is worse in your answer. That is not permittable.
I will not.
Okay, fine.
At the beginning.
Permittable, is that a word? Well,
it is today.
Not permitted.
Permissible.
Sorry, permissible. Thank you. Go ahead.
Look, he's clearly got a lot of questions to answer to the people of Maine, to his family, to the people who work for him. But what I will say is, when you look at what Susan Collins has spent a career doing, which is lying to the people of Maine and placating people like Donald Trump and the leaders in Washington to get whatever she can, she hasn't held a public event in more than a year. To me, I will take a flawed Graham Plattner than a lying Susan Collins, who has done nothing to help the working families of Maine.
So
I
have to take issue with that.
In the United States Senate. And she every time we have a Supreme Court nominee, she says, I'm going to believe them on Roe, and then 5 seconds after they take the oath, they say they're going to get rid of Roe, which now, by the way, is gone.
Susan Collins has been one of the most independent senators in the United States Senate. She serves as chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, a very powerful position. As the only federal Republican in the in New England, she really has been a voice for many issues here in New England, including medical research and some our defense industry in New England. So she has been very active at steering federal dollars to New England and being an independent voice.
I will say, you don't get to be
re-elected.
chair of the Appropriations Committee of the United States Senate by being an independent voice in the Republican caucus, or in the Democratic caucus, by the way. She carries the water. Of the Republican leadership, and when she needs to carry the water for Donald Trump, she carries it, and she does it in direct conflict with the best interests of the people of Maine. And that is, by the way, why she's going to lose in November, and we will finally have all Democrats
and I would just
controlling
say,
all of the
as far
seats
as
in New
Graham
England.
Plattner goes, I mean, again, somebody that had a Nazi tattoo for many years has made derogatory comments about women, about other minority groups. I mean, it would be a real embarrassment.
You know what the great thing about being a host?
Look at your candidates and see how many people in your party have done that.
Let me explain what the beauty to both of you is of being a host as opposed to a guest.
Oh, yeah.
The host can say to a guest, you may not bring up so-and-so. That doesn't mean I can't say, as compared to a guy who has 34 felony convictions and a court found to have been liable for sexual abuse, I can say it, but you can't.
I did not.
Amy, it's great to see you, and thanks for your time. Good luck in the fall. It's great to see you, Steve. Good luck
Thank you,
to
Phil,
too.
much for coming in. We
Thanks
much
so
appreciate it. We've been speaking with Amy.
By the way, can I just say to Amy, by the way, I
What?
just realized, we hope to do, because debates are set up for Senate stuff, which is great, governor stuff, they're already set up. We hope to do debates on every constitutional office where you have a candidate, so we hope you'll urge your candidates to participate, some of whom have reached out to us already,
That's
and we
right.
really appreciate that.
Jim is really something at debates.
No, you're doing them
He's
with
very
me.
good. Oh,
You're
I'm doing
pretty
it with
good
you.
yourself,
Okay,
Martha
okay.
Egan.
We call
Thank
him
you,
Mr.
Amy.
Follow-Up Question.
Okay, fine, Martha.
Okay,
Go
we're
ahead.
speaking with Amy Carnevale.
Nobody calls me Mr. Follow-Up Question, but that's okay.
Who's the head?
People call
It's
you Miss
confident.
Algae, is what they call you.
What about the ducklings?
We're going to
Jim?
get to them. Okay, let's keep moving.
Amy Carnevale is head of the Mass GOP. We're very grateful you come in, Amy. Steve Kerrigan, head of the Mass Democratic Party. Thank you both. Coming up after this quick break, forecast says it is raining queens. We will talk with the iconic voices behind a new show that's named that at Arlington's Regent Theatre. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and live from the Boston Public Library.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk over at New England Aquarium. It's a race to protect endangered sea turtle populations. After months of rehabilitative care, there's a new batch getting released this week, with waters finally warm enough for the little guys. We'll meet the senior animal care specialist helping ensure the turtle's safe return. That's the Curiosity Desk, today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham. In heart surgery, expertise matters. Mass General Brigham Heart and Vascular Institute performs thousands of surgeries each year and is committed to research and innovation. massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Newbury Court, serving Concord, Massachusetts for 30 years as a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community dedicated to older adults. More at newburycourt.org.
Welcome back to BPR and 89.7 GBH. I'm Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back here tomorrow and Friday. The mayor joins us, Mayor Wu, I think on July 8th. Joining us now on Zoom, 2 Grammy nominee Martha Wash, the iconic voice behind numerous dance anthems, including maybe my favorite song ever. Marsha Warfield, known for playing no-nonsense bailiff Roz Russell in one of my all-time favorite sitcoms, Night Court.
What do you call those purple-like things on your feet?
I call them socks.
Well, they're not regulation. Are you aware that non-issue hosiery can inhibit your ability to apprehend a prisoner?
I have you know I can kick butt in bunny slippers.
They're joining us to discuss their new dual headline show. It's called It's Rainin' Queens. You can see it at the great Regent Theatre in Arlington on Friday, June 26th. Go to Regent Theatre, that's with an R-E at the end, regenttheatre.com for tickets and information. Martha and Marsha, it's a thrill to have you. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and the show, it sounds like such a great idea. So let's start with Martha. How did the two of you get together, Martha?
Actually, I interviewed Marsha for my 10 Minutes with Martha Wash digital magazine. I had often wondered where she was. I had not heard anything about her in a few years, and I always wondered where she was and what she was doing. And I reached out to her, and she agreed to be interviewed by me, and that's really how the friendship started.
So, okay, so that's how that started. But I was reading the press release, Marsha, on this joint effort of yours, and it says it transcends tradition, comedy, or concert formats. What does that mean in English? What are people getting on June 26th?
Oh, first of all, you're going to get Martha. It's a mutual admiration society.
So I hear.
But for my part, you're probably going to get a recipe for how to change the world in 2 years.
That's what we think
I
we
like
do
that.
here.
I
me
like
tell
that.
you.
And it's 75 minutes to 90 minutes, which is perfect, because sometimes, you know, you don't want something to go on for 2 or 3 hours. I love the 75 minutes to 90 minutes. I think that's an absolutely perfect deal. So it's going to be part song, part talk. Is that the deal, Marsha?
Oh, well, I'm opening the show and, you know, get my stuff out the way, and then Martha takes over and rocks the house.
You know, Martha,
it's a perfect formula.
Perfect formula.
I wasn't exaggerating before. I've probably listened to It's Rainin' Men maybe 50,000 times in my life. And then I was reading about you the other day. And by the way, we should say your colleague in The Weather Girls was Izora Armstead. I hope I pronounced her name right.
Right.
I read that a ton of stuff you did afterwards, and I'm always looking for you. You were the voice behind tons of these anthems for which you got absolutely no credit. Why, and what was that like?
Well, that's been, my God, over 30 years ago. It wound up happening. I sued him, I won, and I have moved on to do my whole solo career now for the last 30 years.
Well, I'm not going to move on even though you did because you're too humble. My understanding is because of the lawsuit you filed, people like you who are the artists have to get credit for their performance even if the business people try to give credit to somebody else. So that is a huge achievement for your industry, not just for you personally. You're being too modest. We are talking to Martha Wash and Marsha Warfield. You know them both, and they're going to be doing a joint event at the great Regent Theatre in Arlington on June 26th called It's Rainin' Queens.
So, Martha, you kind of took a break for a while.
Marsha did.
Marsha did, excuse me.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned getting together with each other later on. But what were you doing during your break? I mean, and what made you want to get back into the showbiz mode?
Oh, well, I never wanted to quit, but family issues took precedence, so I had to take some time off. But I want to get back to Martha and her modesty.
Yes.
I admire so much that she is such a stand-up person and that she stood up and won. And that so many young people who reap the benefits don't really know exactly how and why, and all roads lead directly back to Martha Wash's house.
I agree. I'm so glad you said it because you have more authority on the question than I. I'm going to ask a different question, Marsha, and it's about you. It's not Martha. How hard, after dealing with whatever you had to deal with and being out of the spotlight for, 20 years, how hard is it to re-enter the spotlight? I mean, you were huge. Everybody watched that show. Everybody knew you. You took a 2-decade break. You came back, and I know for a couple of years the show was rejuvenated. But all this stuff. How hard is that to get back into it?
Well, it took a different, I had to reformulate myself. I couldn't jump back into the pool like I had never left. First of all, I had to get my chops back, get the stage rust off, and find my voice again. So I started all over. Went back to open mics and small clubs and 5-10 minutes at a time, and started from the beginning. And so it wasn't necessarily hard, a little bit humbling, but it was very valuable, and I got to do something most people don't get to do, and that's to have 2 bites at the apple with what I knew then as well as what I'm learning now.
And, and when you started, there weren't that many women doing comedy, I don't imagine. I mean, there's not that many women now. What was it like when you began?
Oh, there were very few women and very fewer black women. Shirley Hemphill was working, and though I didn't know it at the time, Whoopi was working in San Francisco, but we were all kids, and there just weren't very many role models as far as black women.
Yeah.
Elaine Boozler was doing stand-up in New York and then moved out to LA, but we got to make it up as we go along. We didn't have to fit into a box because there was no box. In fact, the women who came before us were often forced to make themselves unattractive, to make themselves submissive, like most women in most fields. But we were rejecting that as a group, as individuals. And so we took a different, we wanted to play with the big boys. So
can I tell you, getting one of you on June 26th would be a big deal. Getting both of you is huge, and can't wait. We're really excited to have met you both. Good luck on the 26th, and keep doing it as long as you can. Martha Wash, Marsha Warfield.
Yeah, thank you both.
2 champions.
For
You're
being
both great. Thanks so much to both of you.
I want to tell people, if you want to get tickets to June 26th at the Regent Theatre in Arlington, you visit regenttheatre.com for tickets. And theater there is spelled with an R-E at the end instead of an E-R. regenttheatre.com for tickets and information, June 26th. Thank you both for being
Martha, Marsha, great to meet you
us.
both. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Remember, everybody dance
My
now.
pleasure.
That's
Thank
right. That's right.
See you
Thank
guys.
you very
Thank you
much.
both.
Okay, coming up after this quick break, it's the only DC story Jim and I really care about.
It's the only story we care about.
Is
Forget
the
DC.
algae bloom in the reflecting pool in DC. We're going to open the lines to get your thoughts about the green goo taking over DC and whether 10 years in prison is really enough for the people who dared touch the water and the paint pieces in the pool. I'm Marjorie Regan. He's Jim Browdy. Listening to BPR 89.7 GBH Live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The World Cup has become an escape from the realities of war and conflict for many people across the globe.
I don't care about girls. I don't care about nothing. All I care about is God and soccer.
I'm Scott Detrow. We take you to a Palestinian-American youth soccer league in New Jersey where players dream big while working through their emotions on the field. That story on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Rogers Fish Company, founded by Roger Berkowitz. Their signature double clam chowder is available for purchase at all Market Basket locations. More at rogersfishcompany.com. And Native Plant Trust, more than 125 years of commitment to protecting New England's native plants. More information about how using natives can support pollinators at nativeplanttrust.org.
By the way, following up on that little spot right there, I got Rogers double clam chowder at Market Basket over the weekend, and it is spectacular. Welcome back to BPR and 89.7 GBH. Marjorie and Jim Brody live from the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Apart from the 2 hours a day Marjorie and I are on the radio, we talk a handful of times on the phone before the show, after the show, late into the afternoon. The only thing we've talked about for 2 weeks is algae. I mean, that really is it. We get on the phone, we text each other. Do you want to talk algae? Sure, I call. Do you want to talk algae?
Absolutely.
You call. Now,
Absolutely.
things have escalated beyond hydrogen peroxide, peeling cheap blue paint and leaky pipes. There are 3 dead ducks, which is really horrible.
The ducks is ruining the whole story because it's not funny. They got baby ducks that are by the pool now, the brand new babies.
I know, it's horrible.
The ducklings, Jim, make way for the ducklings.
Officials say the construction around the pool is putting extra stress on. I mean, Cy Montgomery talks about stress on animals, on the ducks and their habitat. According to one report in the Washington Post, quote, where the body of the dead duck taken from the reflecting pool ended up is unknown. Then there are the bizarre claims made by the bizarre Donald Trump about vandals cutting the bottom of the pool. Here he is.
You know, we have I think 290, 300-foot slit right through it, probably a box cutter or a knife of some kind.
National Guard and police have been all over the mall. How would these vandals have gotten so close to do something like that? Do you have any proof of this?
I mean, we didn't have a lot of them then. Who would think that somebody would go into a pool and take a knife and start cutting it?
But do you have proof of that?
Yeah, we have proof.
Photos?
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. When you have a 350, I think it's 350, not 250, a 350-foot slit from one end to the other, you think that's proof?
No, actually, it's not proof. We can't stop obsessing over the algae. Literally, I'm not exaggerating at all. It is all we talk about in every conversation. Join us in our derangement, or if you're not into the algae fiasco ahead of July 4th, you can come and chastise us and tell us to grow up a little bit. The number is 877-301-8970. Matt Visor, who used to be at the Globe, then went to the Washington Post, did a great piece of The Atlantic. The last line is he quotes somebody who got a piece of the peeling paint from the bottom, and they're quoted as saying it's like getting a piece of the Berlin Wall.
That's
I mean,
right.
Really?
Yep. Well, the plot has thickened, Jim. Apparently,
Why?
Apparently the algae has morphed into a different kind of algae.
I read that,
and
yeah.
it's now called the skinny dead mouse algae. We're not sure why they call it the skinny dead mouse algae.
Well, I think we do know.
Scientists call it that. And people describe it as looking kind of like an oil sludge, and it really smells pretty bad. People are complaining when they get next to it. They're looking for volunteers. Exactly. They're looking for volunteers to work overnight, 12-hour days to be in the pool, sucking up all the algae with a vacuum.
Is this like
cleaners.
a total humiliation for him? That's why they're doing
it's total. It's totally. The only thing that ruins it is the poor ducks. I'm very upset about the ducks because they're going to do not autopsies, but going to do how do you say that? Necropsies on the ducks to see how the ducks died, if they were felled by the cyanobacteria or by the hydrogen peroxide that people were dumping into the pool. I mean, it just gets better.
Sound effects are atrocious, by the way. Here's an anonymous texter. Nobody saw Jim over his long weekend. Perhaps he was at the reflecting pool with his box cutter. And Paul from Marshfield really nails it. RFK Jr. ate the dead duck for dinner last night. That is very, very possible.
Okay. Jan Rundle says, draining the swamp? How's that going? And Jan in Watertown calls it the Strait of Ooze.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that kind of cute?
Here is, before we get to the calls, here's our new favorite song. It's a parody of that great song, Alfie, by Dionne Warwick, from Rocky Mountain Mike on YouTube. Here it is.
What's it all about when they painted blue algae? Are we meant to have a shit to give?
It's actually pretty clever. 877-301-8970. Actually, I have to say, we're not outliers. Everybody I know, and I mean this, everybody I know. If you listen to Jamie yesterday with Christina Quinn, he's obsessed. Everybody is obsessed with this story because it is like a metaphor.
It's a metaphor
for this whole Trump 6 years
it's
or whatever
metaphor
it is.
for the war in Iran. It's metaphor for the East Wing. It's metaphor for the how much is the East ballroom costing now.
$600 million.
$600 million.
Half of which we are paying.
Yeah, and then we have the picture. Oh, let's put up the picture of the guy that's in charge
Cavallo,
of supposedly
Mr.
taking
Cavallo.
care of the pool. He was involved in a bribery scandal a while back, and I guess look at this guy. I mean, look at this guy. If this guy came to your house to deliver a newspaper, would you let him in the door?
I wasn't supposed to say this. This is actually after Ozempic, which is really. I know that's body shaming. It was.
Oh, there he is with a cigar in his mouth.
He looks much better there.
Yeah, this good-looking woman sidled up to him at a party, not because she was interested in him, but because she thought he looked like such a villain. There she is. Said he looked villainous, and he's the guy he lives next door or around where Trump lives in Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, but I can't tell you this.
Marjorie, that's pretty good.
Nothing has made me happier about this administration until the cyanobacteria green algae in the pool that stinks to high heaven, and that Trump is claiming there's a slit in. No one has seen the slit except for the president. I mean, there was a slit that was there before, but it's got nothing to do with this slit. He also claimed there was a slit at the Rose Garden, you know. He also claimed that's there. So he has to blame somebody else.
Vandals. He said it was vandals.
Vandals, that's right. 10 years in prison. 10 years in prison. They got this Olympian, 67-year-old Olympian.
Three-time Olympian.
Three-time Olympian. Yeah, what was he, a rower or something like that?
I don't know.
I forget what he did. But anyway,
I think he was a box cutter was what he was in the Olympics.
He's facing 10 years because he picked up a piece of the paint. 877-301-8970. Stuart in Providence, how do you feel about the reflecting pool?
Hello, Stuart.
Hi there. Yeah, I think that green being synonymous with money, it's all about Trump's gangrenous touch, right? It's just turning green.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Just,
okay.
Stuart, all we're doing is hoping he leaves, yes.
What part of your free time, what percentage of your free time do you think about the algae in the reflecting pool?
I reflect on it quite a bit.
Well, so
very good.
That was rather
you know what
sad.
The problem
Thank
is?
You, Stuart.
No one can see the reflection in the reflecting pool anymore. It's an American tragedy. And you know what the big reason this is happening, in addition to the incompetence? Well, climate change. That's what's calling cyanobacteria in all these lakes down the Cape. It's just terrible. It's calling it everywhere. And because it was like 100 degrees on those days, and you know the president thinks that climate change is made up.
Can I say something that I'm not 100% is true?
Oh, was the Olympian a shot putter?
No, I think that was a joke.
Is that a joke?
Yeah, you think about it for a minute.
Zoe says something about the sludge feels very X-Files.
Let me.
Exactly.
That was purely so they can play the sound. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this true? I think it's true that what experts in this kind of thing are saying is what is causing the peeling. It's not a box cutter, but they're putting hydrogen peroxide to kill the algae.
That's right.
That's the good news, even though it's not working. But it's also peeling the paint liner, is it not?
It's peeling the paint liner, and something we don't know, it could be the algae, is killing the ducks. And we're very upset about the ducks because there's a bunch of baby ducks, and we don't want the baby ducks to meet their, death in the algae pool. Let's go to Jane in Concord. What do you think, Jane?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I do not understand why Trump started doing this only 2 months ago, and he didn't do it way in advance if he was going to so-called renovate the pool.
Yeah.
But it does have river water going into it, so they should have anticipated the algae problem. And also, the people standing in the pool now to try to clean it might be the ones kicking up the paint.
That's a very...
I was there a year ago. I was there a year ago in July, and we visited the Lincoln Memorial in the pool at night. There was no violence. There was no problems. I didn't have any trouble in D.C., based on what Amy Carnevale said. I took the subway, no incidents. Everyone was so helpful. So I want to just contradict what you said about Washington being violent.
We're glad you added that to the discussion. Thank you very much for your contribution there.
Some of these algae experts, Jim, have said that the deep blue paint, these both called American flag blue, has made the situation worse because it raised the temperature of the water. So we really got this expert, Mr. Carvano there. I mean, I'm not sure that whatever his name is, we're not really sure he knew.
Carvano.
That's where you sell your cars, isn't it? That's Carvana.
That's Carvana.
Whoops, I was close.
By the way, do you know what? When you buy a car from Carvana,
Yep.
they give you a free duck in the back seat. Did you know that? It's an incredible bonus.
Okay.
Oh, my God. We actually have someone who knows what they're talking about, which is really unusual for us.
A restoration architect.
Dan in Gloucester.
Dan in Gloucester, what do you think?
Take it away. Take as much time as you need. Go.
Hey, I'm a big fan of you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I'm calling from inside a car, but Yeah, I spent 40 years doing things. The last five projects in New York City was the restoration of the New York City City Hall steps.
Oh,
my
wow.
goodness.
And
You're a hero.
We waterproofed underneath the new granite steps using a very, very good material called Kemper. And we've worked with those people for years. We did the waterproofing of the Irish Hunger Memorial, which, if you've never been to New York, is a beautiful thing.
Yep, it is.
It leaked from the moment that it was erected in 2001. But the key here is that they didn't hire good people, and they didn't, as far as I know, they didn't hire a professional to design the system.
They did not.
And I think
we're suspicious of
Go
the
ahead.
people they hired.
Keep going, Dan. Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Am I done?
No,
No.
you're not done. We are done, but go ahead.
Keep going.
Keep going.
The dumbest people in the world are people who cut out professionals to save money or to save time, and I think they did exactly that here. They were rushed. If you think about the reflecting pool, is, I don't know for sure. You correct me. 80 years old.
I don't know how old
like
it is.
Or quite old, decades old, and it was never coated to begin with.
Well, you know,
Which
by the
means
way,
that-
the point
that
you
there's-
made, Trump has a history of choosing people who, I mean, I don't mean to be serious here, who have no expertise. Their qualification is they're loyal to him or they've given him money. And in the case of this character, this Cafalo, Marjorie said he's a neighbor. He got a no-bid contract, and he obviously has no idea what he's doing.
Oh, can we see his picture one
Hey,
more
Dan,
time?
that
Because
was
I really
great
love
of you
his
to
picture.
Call us again, please. Thank you.
Yes, there he is, looking very suspicious.
Oh, he looks good. He really.
There he is again.
That's a nice photograph.
Looking even better.
I like the outfit. Oh, there he is. Looking
Oh,
very
my
happy.
God.
She's very happy.
Thank you, Dan, for that analysis.
That was excellent.
I mean, they needed Dan down at the reflecting pool, no question about it. Mish from Connecticut, what do you think about the reflecting pool?
Hey, Mish.
Hi. Thanks you guys for having me, by the
Sure.
way.
Yep.
I listen to you guys every day.
We love that. Thank you.
But, yeah, so besides spending and wasting our taxpayers' money, I swear to God, Martin was saying that Trump was talking about the slit. Oh, it's a 250-foot slit, 350-foot slit, whatever. He doesn't know the size. I swear this man only knows the slits in women's dresses and skirts. That's the only thing he seems to have an expertise on.
Okay.
I'm glad you stopped there, Mish. Thank you. I was a little nervous
Mish,
for a
thank
minute.
you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, first he said it was a 250-foot cut by
We
the
played
knife.
that just
then
now.
it went to 300, then it went to 350. He's not sure. It's a big. They went in there with a knife, said Trump. Who would think someone would go into a pool and take a knife and start cutting it? Of course, even though there are photos of this supposedly happening, we haven't seen the photos. So it's another one of
He
these things.
said
where
you'll
he's
see him
claiming-
in court.
Yeah, we'll see them in court.
What do you think of the odds that
when
we'll see
poor
him in court?
The Olympian Mr. Hearn gets sentenced to 10 years of hard labor for touching the paint. I mean, he's going to go out and hire a lawyer now, right?
That was my point to
Yeah,
the Attorney General.
exactly.
You lose these cases, it means nothing to the government. What matters is you've gone through stress, you're worried you're going to jail, you spend your life savings, and the judges don't hold the government in contempt, and they should be jailing these lawyers. In
Okay,
any case.
we have
By the
sound.
way,
We have
can I
exclusive
do-
sound, Jim.
Before you do that, since we've
Yep.
been, I wouldn't say complaining, but maybe I would. We've been talking about how the only, the other candidate for governor on the Republican side has not joined us. Mike Minogue will be with us 11:45 to 12:05 on July 16th. We thank him. We're looking forward to meeting him.
Okay, apparently we have exclusive sound of the reflecting pool algae. Why don't we play that sound?
Okay, fine.
It's not easy being green.
This is actually fairly clever. Thank you.
Okay, last week we had Jim doing the Topo Gigio,
No,
begging
no,
to be taken
no,
out of the algae.
no, thank you.
But Jim's
Okay.
refusing to do it.
Here's an anonymous texter says maybe Mr. Pillow can step up and clean and restore the reflecting pool. Oh, this is a much better idea. Anonymous texter. I wonder if Rudy Giuliani can contact the Four Seasons Landscaping Company to take care of the algae. Another anonymous texter, a lot cleverer than we are. Algae Bloom. Perfect name for a female comedian or a drag queen.
That's
Those
right.
Are all good.
That's right. Rudy Giuliani, people may recall, he thought he was going to be at the Four Seasons
One of the
Hotel,
greatest stories
and he wound
ever.
up at being the Four Seasons Landscaping Service on behalf of the President of the United States. I think that was the day that he had the dye dripping down
And
his
in the
face.
background, he was at Four Seasons Landscaping. What was the business next door? A porn shop.
Oh my God! Yeah, that was a great day. 877-301-8970.
Why do you think we're not exaggerating at all. Why do you think you and I are total, and by the way, the other person consumed, our friend who sent us the MAGA hat, which now stands for Make Algae Grow Again, she too, Sarah, is obsessed. What is it? What is it?
Because it's as you said before, because it's a metaphor for incompetence and botching things. I mean, he's botched this Iran situation, but that's much more serious and sad. This is not so sad, except for the ducks and the little ducklings and there's 3 dead, and we got the baby ducklings that I'm very upset about.
You know, let me say something. I'm a little nervous.
They're going to do autopsies, though.
I heard necropsy.
Whatever they are.
I'm a little nervous about talking to Edgar, because if Edgar says he doesn't give a damn about the algae, sort of undercuts our whole thing. Edgar, I'm going to take a chance. Do you care about the algae?
No, I do. What I care most is that, as you know, it is the reflecting pool, and I love that you are using this as an opportunity to reflect on great moments in history, like the Four Seasons of Rudy Giuliani. I have not thought about that in months. It's really delightful to remember.
Yeah.
So you're avoiding the question because you don't give a damn about this? Is that why you said that?
No, I think it's exactly why you're obsessed with it. It's cathartic in a way. It's a bit of a metaphor right now for things, and it's something that you kind of dunk on them about without feeling bad because the stakes are a little bit.
So aren't you supposed to be answering curious questions from people on that show?
That is one thing.
So when is the show on why the blue crap is peeling? When is that show?
We're working on it. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to the bottom of it.
A contractor said they didn't let the paint cure for enough time. They dumped the water back on it too quickly. Perhaps that's it, Edgar. What do you think?
Perhaps.
It could be.
What do you? By the way, before you do this, this is really unwise, but we're going to try it because the show is almost over. Allegedly, we have exclusive. That's when it's dangerous. Sound of Trump in the reflecting pool. Let's give it a try. Go ahead.
What are you doing in my swamp?
Okay.
I get it. Maybe I should have made a decision.
Okay.
What are you doing on the show thing?
Well, on the show, something that's happening today. The New England Aquarium is releasing some sea turtles back in the water. Jim, do you know where they rescued the turtles from?
The reflective pool?
No, I mean...
Leave it at
Thank
that.
God.
I think it's good.
They saved them. I wish they could save the baby ducks.
These are very real turtles that have been saved from winter shock, and they're going to go back into the waters today.
So that's good. I love that story.
I love my turtle book. What's that called, the turtle book?
I don't know.
How I Married a Turtle or something like that, or something like that. It's a great...
And the marriage is going very well. Okay.
It's a good book.
Thank you very much for listening to another edition of BPR 89.7. Thanks everybody who came down to the library. Keep up with us 24/7 way of our podcast.
Marjorie's applauding for herself.
Our TikTok page.
She didn't even say anything, and she's applauding.
We'll have Algae Pool Part 2 tomorrow from 1 to 2. We're not on from 1 to 2 anymore.
Well,
anyway,
perfect,
we will be here at the library speaking with CNN's John King, Boston Globe business columnist and Power Play columnist Shirley Young, Harvard National Security expert Juliet Kayyem, and the sons of sports radio talk show host Eddie Andelman, the great broadcaster who just passed away last week. We're going to talk to the Andelman sons about their dad.
They're the Phantom Gourmet guys.
Yeah, the Phantom Gourmet guys. And we used to be on the radio with us.
Unfortunately, we did used to be on the radio.
They
with
did.
them.
They're very funny. Our
they
crew,
didn't like us. We didn't like them.
I think they liked you, Jim.
We're having a rapprochement.
I never got to
tomorrow.
talk when they were on.
I know.
It was like
it's a male thing.
It was a male thing. It was a male bonding thing. I was left
I
out.
wouldn't go that far.
Anyway, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Ariana Gonzalez, additional support from Charlie Desjardins. Our engineer is John LaClaw Parker, our executive producer Jane Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Juan Jose Cadena, our security team, Darius and Derek, and our hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Stay tuned to the Curiosity Desk, which starts right after us at 89.7, and the Culture Show, starring Jared Bowen, starts at 2. He'll speak with Mahesh Das, president of Boston Architectural College, and the book is
book.
The True and Lucky Life of a Turtle. It is a great book for
one
grown-ups
of
and for kids. Jim, get on that pool. Get to the bottom of it.
I'll call you in like 5 minutes. We can talk about it. Bye. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's how-tos and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing coverage plans for individuals, families, employers, and retirees with benefits that help you live in your moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, well, it sounds like the setup for an off-color joke. A reverend, a rabbi, and a Muslim chaplain walk into a radio studio. Only, it's not an off-color joke. It's not a joke at all. It's our inaugural Faith Leader News Panel. We'll dig into some of the moral and spiritual questions raised by the emergence of AI, and whether an event like the World Cup can actually really and truly be a religious experience. Meanwhile, down on the Cape, the New England Aquarium is getting ready to release a new batch of rehabilitated endangered sea turtles. There's a lot of work that goes into making sure these little guys have a safe return to the wild, including x-rays. But do they have to wear little turtle-sized lead bibs? We'll investigate this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Kristen Wright. President Trump is visiting eastern Pennsylvania today. He's expected to talk about the U.S. economy. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports the president is looking to turn the page on the war with Iran.
Trump will be visiting a Mack Trucks manufacturing plant where he's expected to tout the work his administration has been doing on the economy. This is going to be his first domestic trip since signing an agreement with the Iranians to end the fighting in the Middle East. Republican elected officials have been asking Trump to turn to the economy for months as the midterms approach. And politically, Trump needs this. His approval ratings continue falling to record lows after his handling of the economy. And according to NPR's most recent polling, just 36% of voters say they approve of Trump's overall job performance, while 59% say they disapprove. That's the widest gap Trump has faced during either term in office. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
The president of Iran is in Islamabad meeting with Pakistani officials who are mediating talks to end the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. Meanwhile, negotiators are also meeting in Geneva. NPR's Aya Batrawi reports Vice President Vance is leading negotiations, and he says Iran has agreed to let nuclear inspectors into the country.
The current deal with the United States not only lifts oil sanctions on Iran through much of August, but also unlocks billions of Iran's frozen dollars in overseas accounts in Qatar. And with Vance as the face of these negotiations, he's been trying to sell this deal as one that's primarily good for the United States. And he says Iran won't see anything until its policies change.
Aya Batrawi in Dubai. 3 states are holding primaries today, including New York, where Democrats hope one race will help them retake the U.S. House. Steve Kastenbaum says voters in New York's 17th congressional district are deciding who will face Republican Mike Lawler in November.
5 candidates are vying for the opportunity to face the incumbent in a district where registered Democrats outnumber Republicans. In the working-class city of Peekskill, retiree Mike Callahan said affordability is a major concern for voters.
Everybody is really hurting and hurting with prices.
Moderates hold the key to winning this district, and Democratic Party strategists want to avoid making this race about President Trump. But voter Stacey Jackson said there's no separating the incumbent from the president.
He's the epitome of people who claim to not be MAGA but are MAGA.
The polls close at 9 p.m. For NPR News, I'm Steve Kastenbaum in New York.
New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani backed far-left candidates. The outcome of those races are seen as a gauge as to his influence. Wildfires are burning rapidly in Utah. Climate change has led to warmer, drier conditions, making those fires worse in many parts of the country. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court has thrown out a ballot question that would have enacted the nation's strictest statewide rent cap in Massachusetts. Today's ruling puts the kibosh on the hopes of tenant advocates who are fighting hard for rent control, and they gathered serious momentum doing so. The Globe reports the ruling comes on the heels of a similar decision last week that saw the SJC toss a question that would have lowered the state's income tax to 4%. The court says the rent control question could not move forward because it would have exempted units that are operated in religious facilities. And the Mass Gaming Commission has fined MGM Springfield $25,000 because it offered to take bets on a Northeastern University college baseball game back in April of last year. Mass Live reports betting was only open for 2 hours before someone from the Gaming Commission noticed it. Last week, the commission approved the fine in a 5-0 vote. The investigation report says no one put any money on the April 5th game between Northeastern and the Campbell University Fighting Camels. State law allows sports betting but forbids Massachusetts sportsbooks from taking bets on college games involving Massachusetts schools. You can bet the Red Sox. They play the Rockies tonight, Game 2 of their 3-game series in Colorado. And we've got a 4 o'clock England versus Ghana World Cup soccer match happening at Boston Stadium today. Do be prepared for lots of traffic, and do be prepared for some wet weather as well. Clouds and rain, upper 60s today, 67 right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Bank of America, sponsor of the FIFA World Cup 2026, dedicated to offering solutions to help businesses win locally and globally. More at bankofamerica.com/gamechangers.
Welcome to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar Beherwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, we begin today with a first. It is time for our inaugural Curiosity Desk Faith Leader News Panel. So here's how we're thinking about this. From time to time, we're going to set aside some space on the show, not to talk exclusively about religion in the news, though it's bound to come up. More so, the idea is to hear how leaders of differing faiths are processing some of the major headlines that you and I are reading and talking about every day. Now, the hope here is to explore the various lenses through which communities of faith are experiencing the world, and when we can, find and celebrate the commonalities. Our very gracious and brave contributors for this first time today are Reverend Dr. Jessica Chicka, University Chaplain for International Students at Boston University. Also from BU, Sister Naureen Mallick, Associate Muslim Chaplain, and Rabbi Charlie Schwartz, who's also the director and co-founder of Lehrhaus, a Jewish tavern and house of learning in Somerville. Reverend, Sister, Rabbi, welcome to the Curiosity Desk. Thanks for being with us today.
It's great to be here.
All right, so we're going to start with the World Cup, which is a pretty big story, these last couple of weeks, certainly locally here, but all around the world. In general, generally speaking, are we soccer fans here? Are we international sporting event fans?
I love the spectacle. It's like the energy is, I'm not a huge soccer fan. The energy is amazing.
Yeah. How about you, Jessica?
I am not a big sports person in general, but I was just in Europe, and I was constantly reminded that we were hosting the World Cup. So,
Sister Noreen, big soccer fan?
I'm not a sports person either.
Not a sports fan
but
either.
Yes, we've got the energy, like the rabbi said. Yeah.
Yeah. So part of the energy is obviously there, I think the biggest thing is so many international travelers coming here from all different parts of the world, all different walks of life. We're coming to the United States and other parts of North America to celebrate soccer. What do we make of something like international sport? Can it be a cultural unifier? I mean, is it something that can be a positive?
I think it certainly is. I mean, there's a lot of sports I think you can think of in that way, right? In America, we might think of baseball or football in the same way, where, you've got people who are gathering together. They've got songs that they sing. They've got, it sounds very much like a church service in a way.
It kind of is, in one way of saying it, it is sort of a religion to a sort of small R religion for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky enough to have a small portion of the Tartan Army come into Lehrhaus.
Yeah,
we held on to our beer, luckily. But talking to them, there was a euphoria, right? And there was a sense of connecting to something larger than themselves. And it was amazing talking to them also just about like connecting with the other cultures as well, like how excited they were to connect with Haitian people and the fans of that team and really cross those boundaries. And so so is it a religious experience? No, in my opinion. Does it have like some of those trappings of like, what does it mean to be connected to something larger than yourself and find meaning and connection to other people across difference? Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just the energy is incredible.
I'd like to bring a different perspective. I like to frame it in terms of hospitality. That I don't know if everybody views it like that, but think about it as an event that you have invited the whole world down to.
Yeah.
And when they come knocking at your door, what is the reception that they're getting at immigration desks? I mean, really think about when you are the host who has invited all these people from all over the world, and they have come to your doorstep. Isn't every culture and every religion out there, don't they teach courtesy to your guests?
Yeah.
And how do you welcome them? So I think I do see it as a mirror to our society. Do we frame it as us being hosts and these people as guests and in terms of hospitality? And I do want to bring into perspective the last edition of FIFA, which was Qatar 2022.
Yep.
And they rolled out the red carpet for the guests. And I had, fortunately, a friend who lived in Qatar at that time. And she was sharing that us normal people have volunteered. There are armies of volunteers who have set up booths outside each and every stadium. And we are just there to offer information, to help people. Do you want to get to know our country? Do you know what is the best place? Do you want to know what's the best place to eat? Do you know, are you having trouble getting to places and stuff like that? And these are normal people. I mean, juxtapose, it's like you and me standing outside Gillette Stadium and saying, do you need my help? How can I help you?
Yeah, yeah. If somebody did that to me outside of Gillette Stadium, I'd be like, what are you trying to take?
Exactly.
I would be like, no, you cannot help me. I am fine.
Right.
I am just fine.
Yeah.
What do you make, Sister Naureen, if anything, of the fact that there are 14 Muslim majority countries playing in this year's World Cup, which is a record. Also, you talk about hospitality. I wonder if we look at whether that hospitality is being extended to all people from all countries equally. I think certainly not. I mean, there's obviously, we have an Iraqi player who was detained for questioning for a lot of time. There are Iranian officials who couldn't get visas. Also, there's restrictions on travel from Muslim majority countries that aren't in place for a lot of other countries. Right. From your perspective, what does that mean?
So there is that kind of friction, and at the risk of sounding political, because politics does start to play into it.
Yeah.
And then this is where I believe sports is soft power. Right? How do you wield that power to bring people together? I think that's something that we as a nation should come around and think more about in a more nuanced way, and to be able to set the politics aside, because not every player is being treated equally. And at least for the players who are coming here to play the game, we should be able to set the politics aside and move from there, hopefully.
Speaking of the players who are playing the game, this is sort of for all of you, but the role of prayer for the players as part of this. I mean, we've seen members of the Croatian team have talked about their Catholicism and how important that is to them. We've seen lots of displays of prayer from the U.S. men's national team, praying on the field post a match or sharing pictures of the team praying together. We've seen players from Jordan and Egypt making celebrations after goals that are versions of prayer. What do we make of display of prayer by players as a part of a big international event like this? And everybody pauses. Nobody wants to take it.
Okay.
I mean, like,
can that be a positive thing?
Yeah, 100%.
So,
In that, like, what does it mean to have this outpouring of emotion, and that's an authentic representation of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a beautiful thing. It's like this is something that's important to me as a person, us as a culture, us as a team. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think it's part of like that, that soft power of like, okay, so what does it mean to interact and understand people who are different than you and see those differences?
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes I have a little bit of an issue of like forced prayer before
forced prayer because people may be of differing faiths and or no faith at all, and they're being forced to pray as part of.
No, I think it's more of just like, I don't think that God really cares about the outcome of your game.
I see. So if it's praying for victory,
yeah. I do think praying for each other, and that you have a good game and you do well and you support each other and all of those things. The community aspect, I think that's great, and celebrating, I think, is also a good thing, but I think I don't, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if praying for victory is necessarily.
What if it's
as far as Muslims are concerned, religion is so much a part of our life and our identity that if you score a goal, many times you would have seen people go down in prostration.
Yeah.
That's an absolute a signal of submission to God and acknowledging that victory does come from God. So, so we are, when that man goes down straight into sujood, he is acknowledging that this victory came from God. So he has to thank him, the guy above him.
So that's a prayer of thankfulness, which
course,
is different.
Absolutely.
That's very different
yes,
than a prayer for victory.
But I think there's an interesting question about like what intercessionary prayer does, right? And there's like a theological question about like if I'm asking for a specific outcome, like in the world, what does that do?
Yeah.
But like there's like it's very clear like what it can do to me, right? And what it can do to the team and the person. So in that sense, I think like it 100% works, right? Like if it makes me a better player for myself and our team more connected. So I'm a fan.
You're
I'm
pro player.
yeah, not compulsory, but the individual.
And we do believe in the same, that collective prayer and that sense of bonding and asking for divine help.
Yeah.
And when you say intercessionary prayer, what do you mean specifically? Like you're
like,
asking for
God,
a specific,
help me win this
with
game
this one thing
right now in this very moment. Yeah, and I think that's like it's a challenging theological like understanding of God in that moment, because that means if I win, that means that God wants the other team to lose, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So like I think there's like interesting theological questions there, and so like which we can debate, but like the question about like me like wanting to play my best and praying for that, right?
Yeah.
I think like what that does for me, personally, is very clear.
You agree with that?
I agree with that. I think I agree with that. I think, I agree with being grateful, right?
Yeah,
like I think that if we consider God to be the source of everything,
right.
But I think sometimes the wording can get a little bit like, control my, shots and whatever. So
so we wouldn't like frame it like God wants the other team to lose, but more like, I've done my best and you're the better player, and and because of that, you deserve to win. It's more like it.
You listen to the Curiosity Desk. This is our inaugural Faith Leader News Roundtable. We're talking with BU Reverend Jessica Chicka and Sister Naureen Mallick, as well as Rabbi Charlie Schwartz from Lehrhaus. Well, I want to turn to another big story in recent weeks, which is Elon Musk has become the world's first trillionaire. That's kind of the big headline. So I want to start with this. I wonder if you could talk a little bit, just generally speaking, about in each of your sort of theological backgrounds, or like what do we make of material wealth to begin with? Well, we'll get into whether a trillion is too much or inequality of wealth is a problem, but just material wealth in general. How do we think about it in your various disciplines? We'll start with you, Rabbi.
Yeah, I think by and large the idea of wealth is it's neutral, right? And the question isn't like, do you have it, do you not have it? It's like, if you have it, what do you do with it? And how does it impact you? Like, there's a very clear like line in the Talmud in Kemach in Torah that literally, if there's no flour, there's no learning. like flour as in the, what you make
The
bread
what
with.
you make bread with,
Yeah, but it's like if there's no money, there can't be any learning. So there's a clear connection between like the necessity for material wealth to make our world go round, and a concern about, okay, so how do you use it? How are you using it to protect those who are disadvantaged or not in power? Like, what does it do to you as a person? How do you make sure that it doesn't corrupt you as a person? So I think, like many things, it is a neutral thing, wealth. And then the question is like, okay, so what do you do with it?
Okay. Go ahead, sister.
Sorry. So for us, Islam doesn't have a problem with you being wealthy, as long as you are earning it through legal halal means, and you're not exploiting other people. So the means and your attitude towards other people is important. And the other important key is the circulation of wealth in the society. Then there has to be a mechanism, and there is a mechanism in a perfect Islamic society where the wealth gets circulated in a way that it's not concentrated in a few hands, and everybody gets to benefit from it. So
can you explain legal, when you say legal halal means, what does that mean?
So that, for example, you're not stealing or you're not doing any of those things. For example, cheating or robbing, right, or any of those things which are considered unethical means,
right? So
generally,
the baseline, like
yes,
moral and legal
exactly,
method for
yes,
acquiring your wealth. Yeah,
and you didn't make your wealth off somebody's back, right? Kind of situation. So that's that. And then there are certain things like, for example, interest is forbidden in Islam. So if you're working in some sectors like the banking sector, those become gray areas, and that's a very detailed theological discussion I don't want to get into right now.
And generally, like the interpretation is that is sort of like a non-moral means to a certain extent of acquiring wealth or building wealth.
We may say that, yes. So where a normal trade is okay, another form might not be. So yes, there are well-defined methods of earning wealth in our system as well.
Gotcha. And how about for you, Jessica?
Well, I think most people, if they think about the story of Jesus, will remember that Jesus...
He was very, very wealthy, right?
Yeah, he totally
was extremely wealthy.
Really handing out, money left and right. He, said to his disciples, you need to give up all of your belongings and follow me, right? Now, does he expect... Do we interpret that as we all need to live some sort of ascetic life where we don't own anything or have any money? No. I mean, there are...
Not everybody, but certain groups
yes,
would.
There are
and
religious
do.
Folks, there are monks and nuns who do that. But along the same lines, as we've already heard, it's not that wealth inherently is evil. It's just that, what are you doing with it? I just saw an interview with Father James Martin where he talks about sin as not being bothered to love, right? So it's not that you don't have the capacity for love, and it's not that you're intending to necessarily to hurt somebody else, but if you have the means to be able to help other people and you just can't be bothered to do so, that's sin,
So let's take that as background and put it into the context of this situation and what it does or doesn't mean. So, we have Elon Musk, who, is a trillionaire now, which there are only 21 countries in the world that have a GDP of $1 trillion or more. So that is, theoretically more money than most countries. And it's also a signifier of something that's larger, I think, in our society right now, which is income inequality or wealth inequality. In the U.S., the top 0.00001%, so that's 19 households, could buy 14% of everything produced in the U.S. in a given year. So 19 households could buy 14% of all the stuff in the United States every year. That's the state of income inequality. Is that a problem?
Yes.
Is it a problem by nature or no?
I mean, I would say, from my perspective, the problem is less income inequality and how are we taking care of our poor, right? And how are we taking care of people who are sick? How are we taking care of, in the biblical idiom of orphans and strangers, right? So, if we could live in a society where that income inequality was in place, and like I could say, like, we as a society are doing the best job we can be on all of those things, then I think it's fine.
So from your perspective, is there a difference between, in a society, if there is 10 very wealthy people, but they are doing a good job taking care of the poor, versus the wealth is spread out way across like millions and millions, and we're also doing an okay job taking care of our poor? They're sort of, it doesn't matter.
Well, I don't think it's the wealthy's the people with the wealth's responsibility. I think it's the society's responsibility, right? So if there is like a big divide, and as a society we're saying like we're actually doing a great job taking care of our people, right? We're doing a great job taking care of our community. Then I think then it's fine.
So the idea of saying income inequality is not good is sort of a proxy for the argument of you saying we should be taking care of those who need to be taken care of as a society.
Yeah, I'm neutral on income inequality as long as, right?
Got it. Jessica?
I think Jesus says in the Bible that the poor will always be with us, right? But that doesn't mean that people should suffer. I think that's where we're at. And when you think about $1 trillion, I don't think most people can conceptualize how much money that is.
I think that's 100%. I think it's part of the problem.
It is, I heard that, Elon Musk could spend $1 million a day for 3,000 years and still never, that would eventually use up all of his money. But it really is amazing to me that people can have that much wealth and not have to give back to the society that is supporting.
The society so you're taking to, like, the society should be structured in some way that it's difficult to do that.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking of human nature. When you are the have-not and you look at a person who has so much, the emotional state that you are in when you look at that person, you can't negate that. You do look, you are envious of that person, and that will breed crime and stuff like that. So I do feel that, yes, there should be a more equitable distribution of wealth through the society, rather than it being, yes, there are going to be some super rich people, but trillion, you can't even conceptualize what it is. I think that if it's beyond imagination, then it's beyond reality.
This is our inaugural Faith Leader News Roundtable here on the Curiosity Desk. We've got BU Reverend Jessica Chicka, Sister Naureen Mallick, also from BU, and Rabbi Charlie Schwartz from Lehrhaus. But before I let you go, I do want to get one more topic in here, and this is another one that's just like generating headlines on its own now, I suppose, and that is artificial intelligence. There's so much here, and in fact, hopefully we'll have you back and we can get into more of the issues around AI, because I think they are varied and they are interesting. I guess I want to start with somebody who, is the head of the Catholic Church, and that is the Pope, who I think none of your sort of faith backgrounds really technically, sort of, the Pope is not in charge of any of these, but he's a big figure and a religious figure, and he obviously had his encyclical in May, Magnificat Humanitas, is dealing with the rise of AI. Does that impact your worlds when the Pope goes out and does something like that?
When it's really good, yeah. It's great.
Depends on the Pope.
I'm not a big, I don't read a lot of encyclicals, but it's a pretty good one. It's made some waves in the circles I run in, because he one of the key analogies that he uses is that of the Tower of Babel, right?
Yeah.
And I think rightfully so. And as a kind of a warning. And in the Jewish tradition, the issue with the Tower of Babel was hubris, but it was also about how it impacted people's care for other people. So that someone would be killed making the Tower of Babel, and people wouldn't care, but they dropped a brick, and that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so the idea that, like, as AI comes into society and as we use it more and more and more, how do we make sure that we're also focused on what it means to care for each other and care for people? I think that's the heart of the question that we're dealing with right now for me.
Yeah, I agree. And in addition to that, the ecological impacts of building data centers and affecting the poor communities among us, to go back to our previous conversation, I think is also something that needs to be brought, I think, more to our attention about how energy wasteful using AI can be, and how it is impacting communities, low-income communities, communities of color, and how they're unfairly facing the brunt of some of those ecological and economic impacts. But yeah, I agree that, I think the warning is we're kind of losing touch with each other, and we need to make sure that we're maintaining those human connections with each other.
In my line of work specifically, what concerns us or me more is, back in the days, if you had a moral question, you would approach the mosque's leader, the imam, ask him a question. These days we have Sheikh Google, we have Mufti ChatGPT. Those are honorific titles given to scholars in Islam. So AI doesn't have a soul. AI doesn't have a heart. It cannot process faith in God. So when you're asking a moral question to Sheikh GPT, what are you getting out of it? So that's very problematic from our point of view. And also the algorithms that are fed into it, who are the people and languages that they are representing? Are they representative of the entire world? Especially the Deep South, and like Jessica pointed out, people of color, who are being replicated. I mean, when those algorithms are built, who are they based off on? So that's a problematic thing. And there are more issues with AI, but in my line of work, that's the top.
What about on a sort of moment-to-moment practical level, to a certain extent, which is, say, I don't know, a pastor using a large language model to help them put together a good sermon, or what about some of these kind of chatbots that are out there, which are their own ecosystem in theory, Text with Jesus or Quran GPT or Rabbi IO or whatever it is, right? Like, what about just kind of these uses? Okay, not okay?
So there is the problem is there's no governance, there's no law out there. For example, I'll give you an example. If you buy a piece of textile, it says ISO 9000 certified. It has gone through certain standards to be approved. When you get this rabbi or Sheikha Naureen said this, where is my certification? I mean, it hasn't gone through anything. So there is no set of rules and no set of governance out there in the digital world. That's the biggest problem. How do you authenticate the knowledge that is coming out? It's so easy. There are every household has a sheikh these days. You just feed into the chat, the GPT, and they will give you a fatwa or whatever. And it's so slick. What is so amazing is my daughter showed me an AI-generated little video about, can you pray with nail polish, for example? That's a legal question. And she showed me a video which was completely AI generated. I couldn't tell. I was just so slick. I was like, I believe it. And she was like, well, this information is unauthenticated. How do you go about that? Because everybody has access to it. So that's a huge problem.
Yeah. In terms of writing a sermon with AI, this has been a big topic within the Christian community.
Really?
I mean, the thing is, AI can't write a sermon because a sermon requires you to have some human aspect in order to be able to relate to people. And so often in a sermon, you have an anecdote of some sort, right? That draws
personal,
people.
That
draws people in, that makes the scripture relatable. That's the whole point of preaching a sermon, is to take the message of the scripture and find how it can be applicable in today's world. And yeah, I mean, sure, AI could probably help you outline a sermon. But even then I would be a little bit suspicious about what sources it's using to come up with commentary on scripture passages, because there's so much commentary on scripture passages. And so, what sources are they, what source is the algorithm using to kind of give you guidance on what the scripture is saying? And I think you can't replace human emotion and relatability. And, so I don't think an AI chatbot is ever going to replace a rabbi or an imam. Or...
Rabbi, what do you think?
I think all these things are tools, and I think there's like deeper ethical questions about how they were trained and what the source material is from. But I you know, in the way it generates content, I'm agnostic, you know, in terms of is it good or bad. I think there are good ways to use them and bad ways to use them. I think there are ethical ways to use them and less ethical ways to use them. You know, I think like checking your sources, making sure what you're saying is accurate. But I think it's a tool, and I think if it helps people get to a place where they can give a sermon, it could be good. I think if a rabbi or clergy member is using it constantly, they should be asking themselves, do I actually like writing sermons? Maybe it's not the right profession for me. It's like so I think there's a question there. But you know, I think for a layperson who's been asked to give a sermon, which happens all the time in the Jewish community, I think it can be a great tool as long as it's used responsibly and well.
I also just think sometimes it creates more work than actually making it an easier process. Because if you have to go back and check everything, then what's the point?
All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. That's all the time we have. But an enormous thank you to our panel of guests. We've been speaking with Reverend Dr. Jessica Chicka, University Chaplain for International Students at Boston University, Sister Naureen Mallick, Associate Muslim Chaplain at Boston University, and Rabbi Charlie Schwartz, who's also the director and co-founder of Lehrhaus Tavern in Somerville. By the way, for more info on Lehrhaus, the website is lehr.haus, lehr.house. Thank you all for being with us today. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you.
Just ahead, there's no moral gray area when it comes to rescuing endangered baby sea turtles. Or is there? Well, we'll find out. This is the Curiosity Desk. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, Pat. The 1990s Saturday Night Live character who turned one question, was Pat a man or a woman, into a pop culture fixation. But in 2026, is Pat still funny? In the new documentary titled We Are Pat, filmmaker Rowan Haber revisits the sketch, the backlash, and what the character reveals about gender, comedy, and society's anxiety about ambiguity. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Subaru of New England. The all-wheel drive 2026 Subaru Crosstrek is committed to keeping loved ones safe on adventures this summer. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com. And 360 Public Relations. For 25 years, committed to helping brands connect and grow through culturally relevant storytelling, thought leadership, influencer marketing, and more. Learn more at 360pr.plus.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Horwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, with me in studio right now is Curiosity Desk producer Rachel Armany. Hey, Rachel.
Hi.
Okay, Rachel, pop quiz for you. Ready for it?
Oh, wow. We're starting.
Yeah, we're getting right. We're going right into it. And this is a fill in the blank style question. You ready?
Okay.
All right, so here we go. Blank is an English linear measure, customary in the United States, the 12th part of a foot.
Okay, I'm thinking carefully about this. I'm going to go with my gut, which I think is the easy answer, which is an inch.
That is correct. You are correct. It is, in fact, an inch. Yes, an inch is an English linear measure, customary in the United States, the 12th part of a foot.
Okay, so I mean, I'm not trying to be a hater here, but I feel like that question was worded a little strangely.
I would agree with that. I totally agree with that.
So why are you doing this to me?
Well, see, the thing is, Rachel, this is not my question. And in fact, this is a 100-year-old question as of today. This, believe it or not, was the very first question asked on the very first version of a test that both you and I, as well as millions of other, including most of our listeners, have taken. Do you have a guess on what that is?
Is it the SAT?
It is, in fact, the SAT's the Scholastic Aptitude Test. Yes, it was 100 years ago today, June 23rd, 1926, that the College Board, they are the nonprofit organization that owns the SAT test, first administered it. It was taken by 8,040 students. 60% of them were male. More than half of the students were applying to either Yale or Smith.
Was it held on a Saturday?
It was not, in fact. It was held on a Wednesday.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that makes it any better.
No.
Well, I mean, I guess congrats to the College Board on this SAT centenary. See that vocabulary there?
Centenary, yes, very nicely done. Yeah, 100 years of bringing people together by striking fear in the hearts of teenagers since the Lost Generation all the way up to today in Gen Alpha.
Well, Edgar, that was a very neat fact from this day in history.
Thank you, Rachel.
But there is, and here's another SAT vocab word for you, a myriad of things happening in the news on this day in 2026. And to help elucidate, see, I did it again, some of those, we turn to the one and only...
Gal Tziperman-Lotan, who writes the GBH newsletter. Hey, Gal.
Hello, I am overjoyed to be here.
Overjoyed, that's another SAT-like
it's medium.
word possible.
Yeah,
medium.
sure.
All right, let's go with it. What do you got for us?
So let's start at Downtown Crossing. The people behind the Embrace, that memorial to Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King, they want to open a new civic center nearby.
Wow.
And they're naming it after abolitionist Frederick Douglass.
Nice choice.
Here's what Embrace Boston's Amari Paris Jeffries told our friends at the Culture Show.
Art and culture is how we communicate, is how we sense make. And we're in negotiation with a couple of companies that I know that you know, and you go to them, we all go to them, which will call the new place their home.
He said there's going to be a black box theater and a gallery and all kinds of spaces. They want to open your Downtown Crossing by 2030.
That's great. So what other stories do you have for us today?
So you might have noticed the gas prices are going down.
I know, but how low are we talking?
We're at about $4.05 a gallon in Massachusetts.
So lower.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's low.
Right. It's down from the roughly $4.50 it was a month ago. This is happening because the market is reacting to U.S. and Iran in talks to end the war that the U.S. and Israel started at the end of February. Mark Shildrop is a spokesperson for AAA Northeast. He told our colleague Marilyn Scher that at this point, it's worth it to shop around.
You know, right now in Massachusetts, some of the wholesale clubs are selling at $3.60 a gallon or so. So we're talking 30, almost 40 cents below what the statewide average is.
Just don't drive around too much shopping around because you're using the gas that you're getting the discount on.
Maybe make a phone call or check online or something like that.
There you go.
Remember last summer gas was about $3.05, so $1 lower than it is now. Shildrop said we're probably not going to see prices get that low this summer.
That makes sense. So what else do you have for us?
Yeah, so we in the newsroom have been spending a lot of time following ballot questions you'll see in November.
Yeah, and there could be a ton of them.
Yeah, at one point there were going to be 12 under consideration, and now we're at the point of the process where the state Supreme Judicial Court kind of weighs in on whether they're constitutional.
Right.
Yesterday, the justices said they'll allow one of the questions to move forward. This is the one that would create all-party primaries.
Ooh, how would that work?
Yeah, so right now you have partisan primaries. All the Republicans run against the Republicans, Democrats against Democrats, and the winners run against each other.
Right, that's how it goes in theory.
Exactly. In practice, a lot of the time you just get uncontested primaries and elections. Under this system, there would be an open primary. So that means all candidates, regardless of party, would go on one ballot in September of each election year, and the top two vote getters would move on to the general election in November.
This is a little bit like the LA mayoral campaign, which everybody was just watching so
right.
closely.
And Boston does its municipal elections the same way. So if you live in Boston or a bunch of other cities, you're already used to this kind of system.
Yeah.
So you were saying this was a court case, so who challenged it?
Yeah, so it was two Massachusetts Democratic Party officials who said it should be excluded because of a rule saying that you can't have ballot questions that get in the way of people's rights to vote or to run for office. The Supreme Judicial Court basically said they don't think that'll be a problem.
Yeah, so not a great argument on their part, it sounds like, is what the SJC is saying.
Right.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that and all of the other ballot questions. I'm sure there's more coming down the pike. You got one more story for us, though, Gal?
Yeah, so there won't be any data centers in Holyoke.
Oh,
the city council there voted to ban these data centers last week.
These data centers that run AI programs.
Exactly.
So why are they banning it?
They said they worry about how much electrical power and water these centers use, and also some other environmental impacts and other impacts to local communities. The company that was looking to build a data center there is called Chestnut River Power and Infrastructure. They're based in Boston. Their co-managing directors said they're going to look elsewhere to build their center.
All right.
That is Gal Tziperman-Lotan. She writes our newsletter, GBH Daily. You can subscribe for free at gbh.org/daily.
Gal, Rachel, thank you both.
Thank you.
Tomorrow on the show, Abigail Adams makes her triumphant return, and we'll get into the roots of the history and possible mythology around something called the Liberty Tree. Thursday, it's our latest edition of the Glitch Report with the one and only Joan Donovan. And by the way, if you can't get enough historical reenactors and interpreters, Henry David Thoreau has been hanging out in his old stomping grounds at Walden Pond. We'll meet the woman making it possible. But as for next, when we return, a dramatic rescue and a careful release of endangered sea turtles, rehabilitated by the kind souls at the New England Aquarium. We will meet one senior animal care specialist as they gear up for the big return home. It's the Curiosity Desk on GBH. Don't go anywhere.
Before the battles of Lexington and Concord, there was a revolt in Worcester. Before his famous midnight ride, Paul Revere spread ideas with cartoons. And before the Commonwealth, it was just a colony. This year, GBH News is bringing together the people, places, and untold stories that turned Massachusetts from colony to Commonwealth.
Available now at gbh.org/America250. Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, with exhibits this summer by artist Jan Lormer, special exhibits from the museum's collection, plus a new sculpture exhibit under construction, America at 250. artcomplex.org.
You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herbeck III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. All right, it's time now to hear about something truly special. After months of rehabilitative care, the New England Aquarium is finally releasing endangered sea turtles back into the Atlantic. These turtles were rescued off Cape Cod beaches this past winter after being cold stunned, and we'll get into what that is in a minute. But thanks to the aquarium, they have made a great recovery, and it's time for them to go home. They're being released later today, and joining us right now over Zoom to talk about it is Kristen Luise, Senior Animal Care Specialist from the New England Aquarium. Kristen, welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So what's happening this evening? What will actually happen?
Yeah, so 12 sea turtles will be going back home. We'll be releasing them off of West Venice Beach this evening, and that will be 4 loggerhead sea turtles, 5 Kemp's Ridleys, and 3 green sea turtles will be going back home after rehabilitation at our Sea Turtle Hospital.
Okay, so let's talk about why they needed to be rehabilitated. I just said a few minutes ago they were cold stunned. So what is it for a turtle to be cold stunned, and then why do they have to be rescued if they are cold stunned?
Yeah, so the best way to think of it is as hypothermia. So what happens, sea turtles are reptiles, which means they're ectothermic, and they regulate their body temperature based on the surrounding environment. So during the summertime, sea turtles will travel up north towards the Gulf of Maine and into the Cape Cod waters for foraging. And when it's time for them to go back south during the wintertime, unfortunately, they get caught. And if you think of Cape Cod, it's sort of shaped like a hook. So they get caught in that hook-like shape, and they're unable to continue their migration down south. Now, when the water temperature drops to about 55 degrees, our turtles will start to face the symptoms of cold stunning. And what that includes is their metabolism shutting down. They often come in with different degrees of pneumonia, dehydration, starvation, impacts such as that.
Oh no, that sounds really bad. I feel bad for them. So wait, so how do they find their way to you? Do you go out and get them? Do people call you? Like, how do you actually find these sea turtles when they are cold stunned?
Yeah, so it's a big partnership. So what happens, another impact of cold stunning is that their metabolism shuts down. So they end up just kind of floating at the surface, and winds will push them onto the beaches of the Cape. And so we have a partnership with Mass Audubon Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary, where they have staff and volunteers that will search the beaches. Usually after high tide is when there's the bigger chance of finding these washed up turtles. And then they transport them down to us at our Sea Turtle Hospital in Quincy.
All right, so I mean, Sea Turtle Hospital, you've got me. So what goes on at this? What goes on at the Sea Turtle Hospital? What does the rehab process look like?
Yeah, so it's honestly very similar to what you would think goes on at any other human hospital or any veterinary
Except for the
hospital.
nurses and doctors are also turtles.
Yeah. Um, so what happens when our turtles come in, they all get an intake process. So we'll get photos of them so we can track any injuries that they come in, any changes that happen. We will test get their heart rates to see, because their heart rates are typically really low. If you think about that, their metabolism shuts down from the cold. Their heart rates are sometimes undetectable, even if the turtle is still alive. So then they will go for x-rays and blood work as well. Probably one of the most important parts of the beginning stages is warming the turtles back up. It's a very delicate process because we don't want to shock their system and all of a sudden take them from sometimes lower than 50 degrees Fahrenheit and bring them straight back up to 75. That would really shock their system. So it's a slow process of warming the turtles up back to that 75 is sort of where we want to be.
You mentioned you mentioned things like pneumonia. I mean, do they get fluids and antibiotics like a human would? I mean, like how like intense can the care or what you have to do to save them? How intense can it get?
Yeah, it can get pretty intense. So yes, we do fluid therapy and different antibiotics. In the beginning, it's more so broad spectrum because we get so many patients, and we have been doing this for so long that we have a general idea of what the turtles are going to be coming in with. But as their care goes on, we're able to do more individual diagnostics where we're able to find if there's a particular antibiotic that they need or a certain fluid plan. So they do receive medications subcutaneously, which is under the skin, or intramuscular in the muscle, or into the vein as well.
You mentioned a few different species of turtles. What are the differences in these turtles?
Yeah, so there's differences in their sizes, in their coloration, and in the shape of their shell. So the three species that we see the most of here in Massachusetts are the Kemp's Ridley, which is critically endangered, and then the loggerhead and the green sea turtle. So today, like I said, there will be a mix of all three going back home.
Gotcha. Do you bond with these turtles while they're in the hospital? I mean, do people end up naming them? Do they end up sort of developing somewhat of a relationship with these turtles as they're kind of, caring for them through, it sounds like a month-long process sometimes?
Yes, it's really a special process to see them from when they come in from the beginning, when, like I said, their heart rates might be undetectable,
Yeah.
to then being able to go back home. So it's hard not to, but at the same time, these are wild animals, and the goal is to send them back home. So we want to not to try to have them habituate to humans or anything like that. But we do have a naming theme each year. So this year was fonts. So
Fonts,
turtles...
as in like type fonts, typefaces?
Yes, exactly. So some of the turtles being released today, we have Helvetica. We have Kermit is a font that's going back. There's an embroidery font named Pretty Pretty Princess. So that turtle is going back today. So yes, the names are a fun part of it.
How many turtles are we talking about? And as you've said, this is something that's been going on for years and years and years. So, how many this year, and is it trending in one direction or the other? Does it sort of bounce? Sometimes there's a lot, sometimes there's a few.
Yeah, it sort of bounces. I would say more trending in the upward direction. This year we had 473 live turtles come through our doors in the span of only...
473?
Yes, exactly. So it can get a little crazy. Some days that's 80 turtles coming in one day. So currently we have 41 patients still, and that is 12 that, like I said, that are being released today. On average, each year we get around 500.
500 turtles on average each year. And is it...
Yes.
And they're all coming in just like, is it a narrow window of time? Like, is it like the one day the water's too cold and all of a sudden you've got hundreds of turtles coming your way?
Yes, it definitely is around 55 degrees Fahrenheit where the turtles start to experience those signs of cold stunning. And so if you think about living in New England, finally come now, so it's more the end of November where it's pretty cold and stays cold. So that's when we really start to see the patients. I would say the end of November, beginning of December is kind of that hot spot where we get our heavy influx, and then it'll start to slow down towards the end of December because unfortunately when the water gets too cold, there is a threshold that unfortunately there's low survivorship.
So how does the actual like literal process of today work? Like how do you get them to where you're taking them, and then like do you just literally like walk down to the beach and like let them go and then just watch and make sure they get into the water and then say, okay, the last one's in, let's go home?
Honestly, yes, pretty
That's
much.
pretty much it?
So there is a lot of work leading up to it. So we're doing a lot of tagging today. So we do place tags on our turtles, different tags to show different things, such as we want to track their survivorship. We want to track where they're going. We want to learn more about the habitat usage, so that can also contribute to future conservation. But the process to actually get them to the beach is they're all in their individual sort of crate that has holes so that they're able to breathe, and they're driven down. So we have our rescue vehicle that they're driven down in. And then when we arrive to the beach, we will go back a couple feet behind the shoreline, and we'll place them down so they have a couple of seconds to acclimate and say, hey, I'm not at the hospital anymore. I'm back in the wild. And then their instincts kick in right away and they head right back.
Yeah. Do you get a crowd of people who are there, or are you blocked off and doing it under controlled conditions?
Yes, so usually it's the summertime in Cape Cod. So oftentimes there
are some people
crowds.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Today is rainy, so I don't expect there to be that big of a crowd. But we do have crowd control measures in place as well, and we do set up borders to protect the turtles from people getting too close if there's a large crowd.
And what's going through like your mind and your heart when this is happening, when the release happens? Is it a happy moment? Is it sad? Is it bittersweet?
I think it's definitely bittersweet, but more so on the happy end, just to know and see it's kind of the fruits of your labor, seeing those turtles go back home after months of rehab. Especially this year, there were some pretty tough cases just because it was so cold this past winter. So to see how much these turtles can survive and be able to go back home is really special.
So before I let you go, Kristen, I just want to let you know we got some YouTube comments. So I'm not sure what your future themes are going to be, but Patricia says amber is a nice name for the yellow amber-colored turtle. And another comment from Enzo's. Enzo says Turdy, Turdie is a good name for a turtle. So I don't know if those would fit in future themes, but
Okay.
there you go. Good luck tonight. Good luck to you and to the turtles. We've been speaking with Kristen Luise, Senior Animal Care Specialist at the New England Aquarium. Thanks so much for your time today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I am now joined in studio by Jared Bone. Jared, just talking with somebody from the New England Aquarium. And when you and I are sitting together, I think of something we have both had the opportunity to do at the New England Aquarium, which is swim with the penguins.
We both have, wasn't that? I mean, it's so extraordinary.
It is kind of amazing
to be there in the water with them, and they're so curious, and they love the community.
Yeah.
You think, am I just invited to stay here? Do I live here now with all of you?
I know. And it's amazing. Like the different species look different, like especially when you're up close, and also just it's one of those things you see penguins from afar or on the television screen so much. It sort of never occurred to me that I'd actually be able to be like up front with one and like right there, and it's amazing. It's breathtaking.
Well, and you get a sense of their personalities, which is great too, and you learn about the partnerships they have, because as we know, penguins, they're in it for love, and they're in it for life. They love their relationships. Yeah, I have to say, and I've had the fortune of doing it twice, actually. There is a few things that we get to do as journalists that make life really, really enjoyable. Going places people don't normally get to go and have experiences people don't normally get to have, and that is huge.
Yeah, indeed. Well, where are you going to take us on the Culture Show today? Speaking of going on journeys, places we don't always get to go.
We're going to go back in time, actually. Do you remember Pat from Saturday Night Live?
Oh, of course I remember Pat.
Exactly. Well done. So Pat is maybe not holding up well in 2026.
Interesting.
Or maybe Pat is holding up well. There's a new documentary film in which a group of non-binary and trans comedians take a look at this character, some of whom had great affection for this character, and what Pat means today, and what ground was broken, but what damage was done. It's a fascinating documentary. We'll have Rowan Haber, the filmmaker, on.
That's awesome.
And then Boston Architectural College President Mahesh Das is here to talk about the data centers, which are exploding
huge
around the
story.
world, and what
Yeah.
they're consuming and what communities can do about it. And he'll just talk about it's their place in history, because we've been here before with factories and the
Yep.
Industrial Revolution, for example. And then we end with A Night at the Disco. There's a new book that looks at the 70s and all that great music
Oh,
and the
yeah.
history, and Cher and Diana Ross and Bette Midler all being out and going to the clubs together in the village. Pretty great time.
Talk about places that I would like to go.
Exactly.
Incredible. That's Jared Bowen and the Culture Show coming your way in just under 2 minutes, so don't go anywhere. As for us, that about does it for now. The Curiosity Desk is produced by Aidan Connolly, Rachel Armany, Olivia Corcio, Hannah Lawson, Nicole Garcia. Thanks to our intern, Mukta Dharmaporakar. Patty Daniels and Jamie Bologna always flip us back over when we get stuck on our backs. Our engineers, John the Claw Parker. Special thanks to Andrew Massawa and Bradley Lewis. We'll be right back here in 23 short hours on GBH 89.7 and streaming on YouTube. If you can't wait that long, check out the podcast version of the show. You can get that wherever it is you get your podcasts. Till next time, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. I hope you will stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Hunter Higgs LLC, presenting Black Cat, a new play by Dan Hunter, a drama exploring science, Parkinson's disease, memory, and discoveries of the soul. June 18th through June 28th. Ticket information at bostonplaywrights.org. How did the powerful British Empire lose the war against a ragtag band of rebels? And what are the myths that this new nation created? Lucy Worsley investigates The American Revolution tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Pat. The peculiar khaki pants and Western shirt-wearing walking enigma was a 1990s Saturday Night Live sensation. A character who made everyone ask one question: is Pat a man or a woman? In the new documentary, We Are Pat, filmmaker Rowan Haber looks back at the joke, the modern-day unease around it, and whether Pat can be understood differently today, in a less binary world. Then the cloud comes down to earth. Artificial intelligence is driving demand for massive data centers, now sprawling across hundreds of acres, consuming millions of gallons of water a day and costing billions to build. Wary communities are asking what those buildings cost in land, electricity, and noise. Boston Architectural College President Mahesh Das weighs in. And polyester, platform shoes, and the beat that moved a generation. In the new book titled A Night at the Disco, music journalist Christian John Wycane traces the artists, clubs, and records that turned disco from an underground sound into a global movement. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. Do you know what time it is?
It's time for androgyny. Here comes Pat.
It's also time to revisit Pat, the famed Saturday Night Live character from the 1990s. In a recurring skit, Pat was confounding, always dressed in a Western shirt, khaki pants, and thick black glasses. The running joke then was that no one from Pat's co-workers to workout buddies to store clerks could determine whether Pat was a man or a woman. Created and played by Julia Sweeney, Pat became a pop culture phenomenon built around a joke about androgyny. But more than 30 years later, that joke lands in a very different world. So, could or should Pat exist today? That's what the new documentary We Are Pat explores. It's an examination of a character once treated as a punchline, and it asks whether Pat can be reconsidered, reclaimed, and even revived in a new way. Starting today, We Are Pat is available on major streaming platforms, including Apple TV, Prime Video, and Fandango at Home. Filmmaker Rowan Haber joins us to talk about it all. Welcome to The Culture Show. Congratulations on the film. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Jared. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I loved going back. I think, like many people who knew this character or had some acquaintance with the character, it is fascinating to look at our memory of then with our times today, you among them. You describe yourself as somebody who is obsessed with the character.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yes. It's funny because as a kid, you don't really understand your obsession so much. You just know when you're drawn to something. And I think, it was pretty simply that like very basic humor of like, things like, is that a banana in your pocket? Or, all these sort of like gender jokes that as a kid I thought were hilarious. And then I guess I haven't evolved because as an adult, I went back and rewatched Pat and I still thought they were funny. So.
Well, this is why I so loved your film, because you thought it was funny. Other people don't think it's funny. So you bring all of these voices to the table, and we'll go through some of them, including one very significant one, to have a discussion about what Pat was then what Pat was then and what Pat is now. How did you land on this being a great topic of exploration for a documentary?
Yeah, I mean, I think with documentaries, it's usually kind of an instinct thing. You just kind of have this sticky question in your brain that you kind of can't get out of there. And I think usually when the question is something that feels like you keep returning to it, or like it's complex, or like it for Pat, I think the film is really, Pat is our entry point and window into discussing all of these much larger topics, like the evolution of gender in comedy since the 90s, like an artist's responsibility to their work, how that relationship changes over the years, kind of the effect of time on an artist's work and how we reconsider things, and also just kind of generally how we have conversations across difference, which I think for me is like the biggest piece of the film. Is it's for me, the takeaway is less about gender and more about being able to talk to people about things that you may not agree with and see if you can unpack it together in kind of a civilized way that kind of lowers the temperature on some things.
Well, for people who need a reminder, or maybe some people don't even necessarily know the character Pat, I want to go back to Saturday Night Live, and we'll talk about on the other side who the character was at the time and then how this begins to be dissected in your film. But here's a clip from a 1991 episode of SNL when Pat shops at a drugstore and the clerk, played by Catherine O'Hara, fails to discern their identity.
I need some disposable razors.
Alrighty. Alrighty. We have the pink Daisy shaver with the moisture strip. Or the Gillette double-edged Brawny. Which would you prefer?
Which is less expensive?
The Gillette.
Fine.
Good. That'll be $2.23.
Oh, wait a minute. I haven't completed my purchases.
I mean, right there, I remember one of the things I loved about that sketch was all the creative ways they tried to get it. You would think, well, this is the question that will elicit a response from Pat. And of course, Pat was always able to get out of it. But as we hear that, how do you look at the depiction now of that Saturday Night Live character?
Yeah, I mean, I think, God, I've thought about Pat in so many different ways that it's kind of like an interesting question to answer because I worked on this film for 5 years, so it's sort of like my idea of that character has evolved. But I think one really interesting thing that comes to me is that, Pat in a way always has all the power in those sketches. The attention is always on Pat, but Pat at the end of the day, like, because the attention is so centered on Pat kind of is the main character. Like Pat has main character energy in that way. And also I think that Pat's a piece of what feels a little bit radical about the sketch to me is that Pat does like never divulges their gender versus like there's so many trans tropes where it's kind of like gender reveal, like there's this desire to know and uncover what someone's gender assigned at birth is. And Pat never gives that satisfaction to anyone, and I think that in itself feels really radical to me. And I fully understand that as my reading of it. But, I think that kind of is what comes up to me. And also, of course, like on a very basic level, it's when I listen to that sketch, it's like Catherine O'Hara is so uncomfortable. It's really that Pat's presence is making everyone else so deeply uncomfortable. And she obviously was such a brilliant actor and plays that so well, you know. So I think those are a few of the things that come up for me.
Well, this goes into a big discussion point in your film, the exploration of how people respond around Pat. I was always struck by that too, that Pat was Teflon, is Teflon. Nobody can get Pat perturbed. Pat is always in control of their answers and their identity and the situation. What does it say that was always the trope, that the people around were so concerned, so consumed, and so bothered?
Yeah. What does it say? I think what it essentially says is just that we have, a societal fixation on gender, and that's just a very basic sort of ingrained human thing, when you come across someone, is to notice their gender. So I'm not trying to pathologize anyone for that. I think that's something that we're socialized to do. Like we, just in the way that people love astrology, like we love to put things in boxes. We love to know, okay, you're a Capricorn, so you're this way, you're a Pisces, you're this way. And I think with gender, it's even more sort of primal, I think. So I think for me, the fact that these people are so obsessed with Pat's gender speaks to like a really kind of fundamental human thing, but also, yeah, socialization and the way that we're trained to separate things by gender. Like one of the interesting things that Julia Sweeney talked with me about was like when she and Christine Sander, her co-writer, were writing the sketches. Essentially, when they were thinking about the scenarios, they were like, well, what are all the ways in which gender is materially separated in society? Like, for example, the pharmacy sketch that we just listened to, it's like, okay, razors are pink and black. Like, that's just such a kind of basic thing. Like, there's so many ways in which things are separated by gender that we barely realize, So I think that becomes really visible in those sketches.
Well, you and I are sitting here having our distinctive viewpoints on the character, but what you do in the film, which again I think is so rewarding, fulfilling, is you assemble a whole community of people to weigh in, largely comedians, a number of trans people, non-binary people. Here's a little bit more from the documentary We Are Pat, when comedians reflect on some of the more problematic aspects of Pat's character.
Something that I think is more sort of necessarily transphobic is the idea that we're sort of supposed to feel this kind of like sexual disgust about this person who's like chubby and androgynous.
I remember it being specifically what annoyed me, the word it. That's the way to dehumanize like a trans person, is to designate them as it.
Tell me about the convening of this group and how and what you wanted to explore with many viewpoints in the room.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is that, I pick these folks because they're all trans comedians or humorists, and they're hilarious, and they're also like really deep and interesting thinkers. Like a lot of them have written on TV shows. Brontes Purnell, for example, who's not trans but is more gender nonconforming, has written like many books, has been written up in the New York Times, won a Whiting Award. So these are like really incredible thinkers and minds. So I think, first of all, I was like, okay, whose perspective do I want in this room? And then I was kind of like, who is a firebrand? Like, who's a firecracker? Like, who is... I think a lot of the folks in that room are total edgelords. And so it's kind of like that makes for interesting cinema, when you have like differing perspectives. And then also I wanted to put together people who had different experiences with Pat, different perspectives, and also were of different ages, because like Brontes and I are of a similar age. But like, Hayden Johnson, for example, is younger. She's in her 20s, and so she didn't know Pat until we did this project. And so I just wanted to basically have like a wide array of people to show that trans people are not a monolith. We have like many different perspectives. We don't all agree on things. Like any other group, there's a lot of diversity within the group. And then also I just wanted folks who were going to be funny, like at the end of the day, like the film is funny. It's supposed to be funny. Like I knew that these folks put in a room together would be thoughtful and would be funny. So,
well, and speaking of funny, just as an aside, you point out that there's been this explosion of trans comedy in the last few years. We're treated to some of it in your film. To what do you attribute that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny. I forget who said it, so unfortunately, I'm not giving them the proper credit. But one of the comics in my film was like, during the pandemic, like everyone either transitioned or became a stand-up comic, and I did both. Like that's what they said. Obviously, that's not exactly true. I don't think everyone is either trans or a comedian, sadly. But like, I think it's an interesting thing that I think the pandemic allowed a lot of sort of privacy and space. And as a result, I think people were really thinking about like, what art can I make? How do I want to express myself? Either whether that be like in a personal way, like gender wise, or maybe that's, artistically. And so I think a lot of trans people were expressing a little bit differently. And then also because it was online, a lot of, there were not really any barriers to entry in terms of like trying out a comedy set, like you could hop on a Zoom show, or you could, be putting out videos like on your social media. And I think, and there already have been trans comics, not so many, honestly, but like, for example, in the film, some of the comics who have been doing this for a longer time are like Nora Reed and James Tom and I think Pink Fox, who's only in the film briefly, but like folks who had been doing it for quite some time. So I think the younger or newer trans comics who are coming along, like look to the ones who are already doing it. And then we're like, okay, I can do this. So I think for me, I do attribute that a bit to the pandemic. And also societally, I think we need to laugh more because it's such a difficult time politically that I think that, and especially for trans people, it's kind of like, we get into this in the film, but, there's kind of this interesting connection between trans rights being taken away, the political environment getting so much harder for us, and the world in general being extremely difficult, and then like kind of an uptick in this comedy, which is really fascinating.
I'm speaking with Rowan Haber, the director, co-writer, and producer of the new documentary We Are Pat, starting today. It's available on major streaming platforms. Well, okay, the big one. It's kind of a spoiler alert, but you already gave it away. That Julia Sweeney sat down with you, didn't just sit down with you to talk about this character. She becomes reinvested in talking about this. I thought she was incredibly generous with her time with you and being open to conversation, because over the years there's been a lot of backlash against the character, and because she conceived the character, she portrayed the character. And we didn't even mention that it became a film, not such a great film, but it became a film. What was it for you to have her participate in this with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was having Julia was one of the greatest gifts of making the film. I think we have a friendship, and I really like her so much, which is that's been like a fun bonus that we really enjoy each other. But we always joke that like it's been the most expensive like 5 years of therapy either of us have ever had, so I think it meant so much because, as I was saying before, like, I don't know, like it's such a powerful experience, and maybe one that not a lot of people get, to be able to have reach out to someone who made something that really, really, really affected you, whether that be positively or negatively, and then sit there and have a conversation and unpack it with them and talk about it and discuss the impact that it had on the community. And I haven't found a good way to put this, but it kind of, with Julia talking about Pat and looking at all this stuff, felt in a way like an accountability process, but it's not an accountability process because no one's trying to blame her, but that's the only way that I can sort of think about it as, is sort of, I mean, I guess it's like a collective unpacking. I don't know, that sounds stupid, but I think, it's pretty powerful to be like, okay, this thing really, really influenced me. For me, it did not influence me negatively. For a lot of my community, it did. So then to be able to reach out and say, hey, you created this thing that I loved, but that hurt a lot of people. Can we talk about it? Can we talk about your intention behind it? Can we talk about the influence that it's had? Can we talk about what was amazing about it, what was confusing about it? And that for me was the most amazing thing about having Julia, was like to show that you can have these kind of like reparative conversations with people.
Well, I love that you mentioned therapy, because this is another thing your film does so beautifully, is it shows this progression that she has as in real time she's going back into the character and her own life. I want to go back to your film for a moment, and here's Julia Sweeney talking about growing up and the gender expectations that were foisted on her by her mother.
Her primary concern for me was that I be pretty and thin. That was all you needed to do. So I decided to be an actress. She really was against it, saying really painful things, about how unattractive, like I wasn't pretty enough. And I remember having to say to her, when you look on TV, do you only see young, beautiful women? No, there's other characters. Those are the characters I'll play. Like I couldn't even, she just couldn't. So it was actually a joy to be Pat, because I got to have a break from having to be a girl too.
It was so interesting to see and hear that discovery. What did it allow the group to understand about something that is created more than 30 years ago, and the judgments we in modern day society put on an artist whose work has become the subject of much debate in the intervening years, but what it really represented to that person at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the main thing is that like we can't look at things ahistorically. We have to look at them within their historical context and cultural context and try to put ourselves in those people's shoes. And that's a really difficult thing to do for so many reasons, because, we have our modern brains, right? So in a way, it's like the work of a good historian, like trying to make sure that you're contextualizing that moment, and also just really, really trying, and it's difficult, but trying to have a lot of like openness and empathy and like listen to another person about what their experience was like, because that for me, that moment that you just played was the most, was kind of the most emotionally resonant part of the documentary for me. And it's where I really softened to Julia and felt so much empathy for her. And so did, all the trans comics in the room said they felt a real kinship with her in terms of the way that like her gender, being a woman at that time, had been so difficult for her. And like the sort of, she's also placed in a gender box, whether you're cis or trans or whatever, like gender affects us all in different ways. And I think that is something that that we all share, So I think that was such a powerful moment. And I think it just reminds us to really listen to another person's experience, try to have empathy, try to hear where they're coming from, and also look at things like contextually and historically, because otherwise, and we're just doing a major disservice, and we're not even being accurate or good scholars or good thinkers if we're not looking at things within their cultural and historical context.
Well, also, your film is just doing what so many people are saying right now, which is that we all just need to be sitting down and talking, and that it just achieves so much. Again, I can't say how much I really enjoyed and admired your film, Rowan Haber. Thank you so much. And I hope that you've launched Julia Sweeney into a new sphere, too, because when people see this element of her, I can't imagine that she won't be cast in everything from here on out. Congratulations, and thank you again.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure. Thanks, Jared.
Rowan Haber is the director, co-writer, and producer of the new documentary We Are Pat. Starting today, it's available on major streaming platforms, including Apple TV, Prime Video, and Fandango at home. Again, thank you. Coming up, Mahesh Das, president of Boston Architectural College, on the demand and debate over data centers and whether society is ready to feed the beast that is AI and all the infrastructure that powering requires. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Massachusetts is alive with the World Cup. The games, the gatherings, the colors of dozens of nations filling our streets and neighborhoods. GBH News is there, capturing the energy and the stories that make this moment unlike any other.
We are astounded. We are beyond belief that we stood up against Spain.
Get all the latest at gbhnews.org/World Cup.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Neville Place Assisted Living in Cambridge, providing residents with a range of services designed to help seniors stay sharp, social, and independent. More at nevilleplace.org/care. And Modern Pest Services, providing integrated pest management for Boston homes and businesses. Modern Pest uses a prevention-first approach to seasonal pests to help target the source of the problem. Learn more at modernpest.com. The local businesses you hear about on this station power trusted journalism and stories that strengthen our community. Join the corporate sponsors who make public media possible. Learn more at gbh.org/sponsorship.
If you made a gift to GBH this year, thank you. Your support keeps this great reporting coming all summer long. So, if you can, please consider making an additional gift by the end of the month, online at gbhnews.org.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. It's time for AI, Actual Intelligence, where we tap into the most interesting thinkers in our region for their algorithm-free insights. Joining us as he does every month is Mahesh Das, president of Boston Architectural College and the co-author of the graphic novella about AI titled I, Nobot. This month, we're focusing on data centers, the massive facilities that power the cloud, store our files, and increasingly feed artificial intelligence. Across the country, data centers are raising questions about electricity use, the demand on water supplies, and their jet engine-like noise levels. Here in Massachusetts, Lowell has already paused new data center development, and Everett has moved to regulate it. While state leaders are weighing how to welcome an AI economy without straining the grid or leaving communities out of the conversation. Mahesh Das, welcome back to The Culture Show. Great to see you again, as always.
Jared, thank you for having me.
Well, there's so much conversation about this, which is why we want to talk about it, especially for your perspective. But to begin, how would you describe these buildings, which really are unlike any other?
Jared, I think as I was preparing for this is Culture Show and not necessarily a tech review. And so I was thinking about what does it mean? And how do we understand the phenomenon of not just artificial intelligence, which itself is confounding, and data centers in particular, which are obviously concrete in front of you and in the communities. You're looking at them and you're driving by them, or there are proposals of those in your communities. So they are ubiquitous, the most concrete manifestation of the otherwise invisible phenomenon of AI, computation, cloud services, and all of these. So first, I think, what is a data center? I don't think there is anybody who might not at the moment see or understand or hear about the data centers. But let's just say that data centers are, as you said, places where obviously data is stored, but also is processed. And it is increasingly become, when we're talking about cloud services, we're talking about now virtually all the data residing there as opposed to your own computers. But they all are actually very physical. So the cloud is not as ethereal or light or virtual. It is actually physical. So data centers are mammoth places. And they actually have existed well before we started talking about them. And, at the moment, there are more than 11,000 data centers around the world, according to some estimate. And there are 4,500 of them in the U.S. itself.
Well, I think it's so interesting to go to the cloud, as you have pointed out, that we have these notions of the cloud, that it all just disappears somewhere and is held somewhere. And now we have a greater understanding that, no, there is this hulking physical manifestation of it.
Yeah.
How do you look at the psychology of that? Just the notion we had, the very now as we think about it, deliberate word choice of the cloud versus the very, again, solid, mammoth, hulking physical representation.
Jared, I was thinking about how can we understand these new phenomena. And we often resort to literature and film and other ways of culturally understanding, where we have the verbiage, the language, and concepts and frameworks to maybe understand them. To me, these data centers are, they appear, they are monolithic, they are often, away, you cannot reach them, you cannot understand them. And to me, they are like Arthur Clarke's 2001: A Space Odyssey monoliths. They share certain characteristics of this, right? Just as the monoliths in the story and the movie by Stanley Kubrick, these monoliths appear, and that is a moment of some intelligence is catapulted in the civilization, in the evolution, and it is one of those moments. So the analogy, I think, it works so far as saying that it is a moment where there is going to be a drastic transformation of what's happening in the world, how we see ourselves, and how the world works. So in that sense, they're monoliths.
Are we supposed to have, I guess supposed is a relative term, but are we supposed to have a relationship with buildings? Yeah. As you're pointing out, we can't really have a relationship with these buildings. As I began to think about this, I realized windows are literally our way into a building, doorways. Yeah. These buildings have none of those things.
Interestingly, Jad, now we can look to history and say, historically, Industrial Revolution spawned a kind of buildings that did not exist before. And these could be factories, mills, and later on oil refineries, later on telephone exchanges. Actually, in fact, AT&T buildings are prevalent in all cities, where in the middle of the downtown, you would have this building with no windows. And then you have all kinds of communication towers on top of it. And that is how telecommunication actually happened. So in that sense, we have had this series of phenomena of very strange and lately large buildings. Data centers are probably larger than anything we have seen before. Some data centers are as large as 5,000 acres or even larger. So these are massive physical artifacts. And unlike the other buildings where they were not at that scale, they could be somehow handled. You drive by, let's say, New Jersey, you go on, I-90, 95, you go down south, you see all kinds of ports, airports, and refineries with large oil tanks. And we have gotten accustomed to those in some way. But they have had their presence, and they have had their kind of resistance movement too. And I think now it is the time of data centers. Why? Because data centers are driven by not just AI. Actually, they existed long before AI. It is everything we do. Your email, you're making a booking, you are making a health reservation, your medical records, everything. All of those are cloud driven. And they are all in some data centers. They're being processed in some data centers. So AI has really accelerated. It is like on steroids, literally, right? And so prior to the AI, it was one era of data centers, and now it is a completely different era. To give an idea, right now I think it is estimated that 415 terawatt hours of power is being consumed by these data centers, and they may double that in another 5-6 years. Right, approximately, that is how quickly, exponentially it is growing. And no wonder that they are now everywhere in the community. And these are not randomly located. They are actually, there is a physical logic to these things from a planning perspective, because they are dependent on fiber connections. So there is a physical fiber that need to be laid down, and then they need to be powered with electricity of various kinds, and then water usage in order to cool them down. And so there are a lot of considerations about why that is the case where they are located. So it's not random, and there is a need that is physical and regional and geographical.
Well, before we get to the way it's tapping into our resources, electricity and water, let me go back to, as you've mentioned, these have been here. We're just acknowledging it in a different way now. What's the social contract that we have?
Yeah.
As we continue to take pictures on our iPhones every single day, we continue to expect all of our information is going to be at our fingertips as we need it, or it's going to be stored safely as we want it, versus our understanding now that there is a trade-off to all that, and can we have both?
And that is a cultural question. That is a question we all have. Social contract is a good way to put it. I think we now are trying to update our social contract conditions.
Yeah. And
which
it's a
we
little
signed
bit too
on
late,
to.
right?
Which we signed on to. But I would say it is the moment when we will need to address this at many levels, right? Architecturally, as you said, what kind of architecture is this? Is when they are present in community, how do they become part of the community? Are they part of the community? Are they a community asset, as other kinds of buildings are?
Well, let me interrupt you. Why have they all taken on the same aesthetic, that they are these big, dark, square boxes?
Let's just say they beg for more architectural thought and consideration, more urban design and urban planning thought and consideration. Right now, I think these are places for machines, obviously. Hundreds and thousands of GPUs and TPUs together, and the machines to cool them and all that. There are not many people in those data centers, right? It's only dozens we are talking about to operate these things. Not like the old factories and mills where hundreds and thousands of people would go in every day and come out of. You experienced those industrial infrastructure differently than these. And that is, I think, the part of the strangeness or alien nature of these things is you cannot go near them for security reasons or for various reasons. And I think people haven't figured out how to do so. So actually, interestingly, Boston Society for Architecture, they held a competition for high school students to redesign these data centers.
Oh, really? Fascinating.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a design question. I think it is a design question now about design is what brings the humans, right? It's about people and human-centered, where what is the relationship between humans and the environments. And in this case, that is currently definitely a missing dimension, right? How can we now make them more part of the community and the landscape? What design considerations are needed in order to... I'm pretty sure there are some solutions out there. We just haven't yet stumbled upon them because of the pace and the kind of a secrecy shrouding some of these things and our planning considerations. So they are polarizing every community, rightly so, in those circumstances. So I think it is a cultural conversation. It is not just a technical conversation.
I'm speaking with Mahesh Das, president of Boston Architectural College. Well, as promised, the thing that I think has made everybody look up is the understanding of how much electricity is being used, how much this is requiring a return to fossil fuels, how much water this is requiring. And again, we're not at the beginning. As you've pointed out, we've had these, but we know the demands are going to increase exponentially over the next few years to a mind-boggling extent. How do we begin to grapple with this?
Yeah, I think if you look at the largest data center in Nevada, it's entirely or largely renewable energy, powered. And I think in every community, maybe that is part of the consideration should be not just locating them there and consuming existing power grid, but rather can they actually come with their own energy infrastructure? As much renewable, the better it is. Can we go to net zero data centers, for that matter? Those are the questions every community must ask. But I think largely we need perhaps a national or global conversation about it, that they're not robbing the energy from the existing infrastructure and raising the prices and or access to energy for everybody, but rather they come with a package of their own battery system, if you will, to power themselves.
I mean, it would be great to get to carbon neutral or net zero, but we know that there are there are these data centers being created that will take as much as a small city or even maybe Manhattan in terms of their energy usage. But there's a reason you said that. Are there places like Finland, for example, where it is being done right?
I think in colder climates, it is being done, particularly in the Scandinavian countries. There are several examples, including a Microsoft data center there, where they provide the district heating because all the excess heat from this has a synergistic usage to power the city. They supply the heat. But I think barring that, it's difficult to see anywhere else the kind of ecological impacts that people are witnessing in terms of the water consumption and release into the systems, or many unforeseen consequences are there. But I would say that is one example where, at least where the heat is a resource that is being used. But that is, again, a technical question, not necessarily the actual community experiential benefit yet.
Where do you see we are here in New England, since we are here, and in Massachusetts in particular, in terms of having a place at the table for these kinds of conversations? That if you're going to do this and we're going to allow it, then it has to have a benefit, like heating us in the winter or something of that nature.
I think in the many forums, including most recently in the Chamber of Commerce, Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, we're talking about that. What is a state's strategy? And state already has data centers, and one in Holyoke, where several universities together with the state have established that data center. And so there are examples like that, but I think geographically and urbanistically, New England is a very different kind of context and more difficult, perhaps, and that is probably why we don't see as many yet. But that is a conversation waiting to happen everywhere. As I said, where there is need, they need to run the fibers and they need to be close to the usage, so that the latency between the computation when you are giving a command and a prompt and the response to you is almost not zero. They need to maintain low latency on these things. So they need to be closer to where activity is.
Well, let me ask as a closing. Past is always prologue. We were just talking about the past with our first segment. We're going to go back there again in our next segment talking about disco. But you've already pointed out the Industrial Revolution and the widespread construction of factories in this country. Yep. So are there many periods of history where we've had these exercises before, where architecture has changed dramatically, or there are more demands on our resources? We know factories were built along rivers all across Massachusetts. That's where it did work because they were using the water supplies. Yep. We've been here before. We can handle this?
We will have to handle it. Jared, I think the question is, how do we handle it? And we do need a cultural thought process around it. We need to bring people together around those conversations as opposed to other kinds of negotiations that might be happening, and seeing them as infrastructure and not as cultural artifacts is, I think, a frame shift that needs to occur, that these are, in fact, the pain that people are experiencing are not just about we are hearing some noise and the buzz of these cooling towers and other things, but it is more about how do we relate to them? How are they part of our community? What solid concrete benefit are they offering to the community? Are there parks and plazas? Are there other kinds of benefits? And architecturally, how do you experience these architectural artifacts? If you are dealing with them as, quote, infrastructure, they lack the meaning. I mean, that is, in fact, the difference between infrastructure and architecture is anything can be infrastructure if it lacks that meaning and consideration and human relationship. And everything can be architecture if it has that engagement culturally and it is meaning. And also it helps us then carry these as perhaps new institutions that we are thinking of and establishing. They're going to be a part of it. It is not like some other invisible power is driving the demand. It is us. Everything we are doing is driving the demand. As you said, the photos to text to email to cloud to, of course, the AI large language models, everything is driving demand.
Well, you articulated by drawing the comparison to film something I hadn't been able to really identify to myself, that they're unsettling, and that's why we have this vocabulary already on film, and it doesn't end well.
Yeah,
on
I
film.
mean, actually, I don't know. I guess that's open-ended debate. I would say these are like, 2000 Space Odyssey's monoliths, and this may be the moment where greater intelligence needs to manifest as a collective intelligence. And if indeed we are at the doorstep of new kind of intelligence, let us solve this in a way that brings people together, communities together, as opposed to dividing, and also create new kinds of architecture that is meaningful to people.
Well, Mahesh Das, a fabulous conversation as always. People can study up. We've already decided our next conversation for next month will be the new Obama Presidential Center. Speaking of monoliths of a different kind, we'll talk about that next month. Great to be with you as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jared.
Mahesh Das is president of Boston Architectural College and the co-author of the graphic novella about artificial intelligence titled I Know Bot. He joins us every month. Coming up, polyester platform shoes and the artists who dialed up disco from an underground club sound to a global movement. We're talking about the new book, A Night at the Disco. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
As the World Cup puts Mexico City in the global spotlight, there's another sport vying for attention there, ulama. It's ancient, more than 3,000 years old, and seen as a precursor to the modern games of soccer and American football. In Mexico, it's a beloved piece of cultural heritage. Hear more about ulama and the top global news and stories next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, with exhibits this summer by artist Jan Lormer, special exhibits from the museum's collection, plus a new sculpture exhibit under construction, America at 250. artcomplex.org.
Support for GBH comes from you and Music Worcester.
A performing arts presenter founded in 1858, programming and activating cultural spaces in central Massachusetts.
Adrian Finley, Executive Director.
Music Worcester sees GBH to be this trusted news source, this trusted media outlet, bringing amazing programming to the region.
To learn more, visit gbh.org/sponsorship.
The Pulse of Boston, in your pocket. Get local news, stories, and live radio with the new GBH News app. Download it today on the App Store and Google Play.
Who turned disco into a years-long movement, spreading its glittering roots from Europe to Fire Island to nightclubs throughout the U.S. The new book titled A Night at the Disco brings that era and all its myriad sirens of song back in full color, with rare photographs and first-hand reflections from the artists, producers, and performers who made the dance floor the center of the world. It's co-written by music journalist Christian John Wycane and Alice Harris. Wycane joins us to talk about it all ahead of a handful of local book events, including this Thursday when he'll be at Provincetown Bookshop, Tuesday, July 7th at Mitchell's Book Corner on Nantucket, and Wednesday, July 8th at Edgartown Books on Martha's Vineyard. Christian John Wycane, welcome to The Culture Show.
Thank you so much. I was just actually at Lovestruck in Cambridge. I did a book signing there.
Oh, fantastic.
And they're like family now. They love disco.
Well, who doesn't love disco? Who doesn't love your book, by the way? I have to point out for people who can't see it on our stream, it's glitter, covered in glitter, and it's just, from the opening cover, you want to just dive into it.
Yeah.
But you are too young to have been dancing in the clubs. What brought you to disco?
Well, actually, I feel like I was there, but just in a different vessel. I think someone that was transitioning out in 1979 created the place for me to come in.
Very nice.
So I feel like I did experience that era, and now my work is to remember it and telling stories that need to be preserved, because a lot of that era was not documented well. And so to find these gems of information and talking to the artist, to me, that is the excitement of doing a book like this.
Well, how would you describe what happened? How did disco become disco starting in Europe?
Well, I think it's important to remember that disco was a place before it was a genre, so it's really the discotheque. That's what we are really talking about. And then in the early 70s, the clubs in New York began to really become a place where Vincent Leddy describes it as discotheque music became a force. And what that really just meant was music that was danceable. And so in Europe, that was common for them to actually have DJs play records versus a live band. And in the States, live bands were very much part of a night going out. You'd see your favorite band. And then with DJs coming in, they started to really be innovative in how they would mix songs. You have a whole night ahead of you. You're going to go to some interesting places, whether it's the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil or the Temptations' Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Speaking of Rolling Stones, there's just so much that they were inspired by to take dancers on a journey.
And the music drove so much of this. How did it begin to catch on as a vocabulary, as a language unto its own?
I think once record companies saw that they could sell tens of thousands of copies of records that they weren't even promoting on the radio, it was all because of club play. That's when they saw, oh, there's a whole market here that we didn't even know about. And so then, of course, as things become successful, then things become a little more formalized. And I really look at the era, and I look at 1970 through 79, and I often pinpoint Fly Robin Fly by Silver Convention as being a song that crystallizes the musical elements of disco that we recognize. I don't think there's a first disco song, because I think there's a foundation that it came from. But I think that the industry really took a song like Fly Robin Fly, and then it just was imitated over and over again.
Well, you talk about the disco groove, and so there was some of that in Love Train. So let's hear a little bit of that, and then talk about how this song was mimicked and where its place in the club. But here's a taste of the iconic 1972 record Love Train performed the show today, because we were realizing that's not a song that you would necessarily think is disco, but it gets you moving.
Yes, and the intention with this book, it's really more about the songs that were played in the discos versus disco as a genre. Because the music that you would hear in the discos spanned musical genres, from progressive rock to funk to danceable pop music. Like, it was just whatever the DJs were inspired by. And Love Train comes from Philadelphia International, and the drummer on that, Earl Young, is really credited as creating the prototypical disco groove. And it's The Love I Lost by Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes that we really hear that four on the floor with the hi-hat that was just his natural groove. Like, that was supposed to be a ballad, like If You Don't Know Me By Now. And then I think it was Leon Huff, the co-producer, that told him, let's put a beat to that. And Earl Young just started playing this galloping beat on The Love I Lost, and that really did signal this shift. And around the same time, they were recording the OJ's Backstabbers album, which has Love Train, along with 992 Arguments, and a lot of these album tracks that actually took off in the clubs, even if they weren't on the radio.
I'm speaking with Christian John Wycane about his new book, A Night at the Disco, co-written with Alice Harris. You had the privilege of having these firsthand accounts and histories and explorations. Tell me about your process. And there are a lot of people documented, those who are still with us in this book. How did you reach them? How did those conversations go?
Well, that's a good question, because the text, that what I wrote, spans a 20-year archive of my own writing and conversations that I've had over the years with people like Donna Summer. So I'm thankful that this book is a home for those conversations. But when I started selecting artists that I felt really needed to be reflected in this book, it gave me the opportunity to speak to artists that I'd never spoken to before. And that was exciting. It's like, oh, who can I dial up and include in this book? So France Jolie, who her big hit was Come to Me, and she made her debut in the States performing at a benefit in the Pines on Fire Island. And her first big audience was, she says, 5,000 gay men. And it's because of that one event that Come to Me went to #1 on the charts, and she has a career because of that. And then, of course, Earl Young, who I mentioned, the co-founder of a French group called Voyage. Their big hit was Souvenirs, which is probably in my top 3 favorite disco songs. I really just wanted to make sure that it was as expansive as possible, that it wasn't just what we think of or what pop culture projects as disco with Saturday Night Fever and Studio 54. Like, yes, that is there, but there's 7 years before those big events that we have to remember, but also celebrate. So Joe Batain is another example. He may not be known to a wide audience, but he coined the term salsoul, which is salsa and soul. And that became a big record company in New York because of the way he was blending genres together. So he's still going strong at 83 years old.
Well, the culture is such a big part of this. You have this anecdote, I think it's earlier on in the book, where Diana Ross and Cher and Bette Midler are all together going out in the village. I mean, if I could set the time travel machine, I want to go back to that night with those three. But this, of course, caught on. And, of course, they were photographed and Studio 54 happened. How did that all also feed into everything, the aura that disco became?
Well, for me, disco is a source of fantasy. And it really stokes your imagination. If you just kind of close your eyes and you listen to what the music is doing, I feel like clubs began to reflect that in terms of the lighting and the atmosphere. And as the technology improved, the effects became wild. And Studio 54, I feel, is sort of like the quintessential example of that, with good reason. There's a reason why we do talk about it, because they had millions of dollars invested in making this an unforgettable experience for anyone who walked through that door. So I feel like that notion of fantasy is very much what disco is about, in terms of being there in the middle of a dance floor with strangers, but yet you're all united because you're experiencing this unique moment in terms of the music and the effects and whatever else you might be doing.
Well, a little bit speaking of that. Well, first, let's get us in the mood. Here's one that just transcends disco and stays with us always, and of course is tied to it. Here's the hit 1978 single, I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. So that's my segue into asking, how did this also get so tied to the gay community?
Well, I will tell you very personally, I feel like female vocalists say for me what I can't say myself. And I feel, especially when it comes to hearing this music in a club, it's a way of empowering yourself. You take a song like I'm Every Woman by Chaka Khan, you don't even have to identify as a woman. And yet, when you sing those words, you feel that power. So I think with the gay community, it's known that we love our divas and we love our female vocalists. And so this era, a lot of those artists flourished. And hearing something like Don't Leave Me This Way, like what a transcendent experience that must have been in 1976, 1977, to have Thelma Houston say for you what you might be feeling about the guy next to you. And I feel like that's the power of these artists, and why the gay community relates to them, is that there's this intensity that I as a gay man feel, but I don't get it from a male vocalist because they're not maybe singing about another man, so at least 50 years ago.
And the titillation of having other audiences, straight audiences perhaps, listen to it and maybe not have the full understanding that you're having, but there's a common language there.
Exactly. And I feel like Village People is a great example of that in another way, that first album was really very much a celebration of the gay enclaves between San Francisco, Hollywood, Fire Island, and the Village. Each of those places had its own song. And then when that album became a #1 disco hit, because all 4 songs topped the chart, it's like, oh, we really should put a group together now. And that's when it became the pop phenomenon that it became.
Well, I have to leave it here. I could talk to you forever. Love to have you back on the show anytime. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much, Jared.
Christian John Wycane is co-author of A Night at the Disco, co-written with Alice Harris. Wycane will appear at Provincetown Bookshop on Thursday, then Mitchell's Book Corner on Nantucket in July 7th, and Edgartown Books on Martha's Vineyard on July 8th. That's all the time I have. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Spend your afternoon with us. Stay with us for GBH's All Things Considered.